maybe if we work through it fairly rapidly, we'll get through it in a couple hours, maybe. I would ask you, if you have cell phones on you, please silence your cell phones, or if you have to make a call or someone calls you, please excuse yourself and go out in the hallway, maybe be less confusion in the room. So if you could do that for me. At this time, I'd like to ask that you please stand with me as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trey,
Here.
Leslie,
Here.
Andrea,
Here.
Joe,
Here.
Bill, Debbie,
Here.
Elsie.
Okay, that being said, we have a full council tonight.
Mary,
Here.
Mary's here, having a full council. I'll now call the meeting to order. What I'd like to do at this time, council, is I didn't do this our first meeting, but Trey, I'll start with you. I'd like for you, for the people at home, people watching, our audience, maybe just give your name. If you want to say where you live in our city, go ahead and do that. But I'd like to introduce all the council to the public tonight, which I thought I failed to do the first meeting. So go ahead, Trey.
Okay. I am Trey Kamer. I live on 4th Street in LaGrange. I have been on the council for, this is my 3rd term, and married with kids.
I'm Mary Bolton, and I live on West Main Street, and this is my first term, and I am married with 1 daughter.
Hi, I'm Leslie Wright. I live the Reserve at L'Esprit off of Fort Pickens. This is my very first term. I've been a resident of Oldham County for almost 15 years, and I have 4 children.
Hi, I'm Joe Davenport. I've been in LaGrange 39 years. I served 19 years on council, 4 years as mayor, and I'm starting in my 24th year now as a council member. I live on Kentucky Avenue.
Hi, I'm Andrea Essen Price. I live over on Birch Avenue, and I own a business in town, Q&A Sweet Treats, which is on 1st Street. And this is my first term as well. I'm happy to be here. I have 2 children. Thanks.
Bill Amline, 1-term mayor. This is my 2nd term as city council. I live on Maple Court.
My name is Debbie Pollard. I've been on the council for 33 years after this term. I live in Jefferson Square condos. I have 2 children. They're married and gone. It's me.
I'm Elsie Carter. I live on Main Street here in LaGrange, and we have a shop there at that same address. I have 2 children. This is, I believe, my 6th term as on the city council and 2 terms as mayor. And I'll do anything anybody's got a position for. I'll jump in and do it for you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm John Black. I'm the mayor of our town here. Lived here all my life. I live at 108 North 5th Street. I was mayor of the town back in the 80s and mid-90s, and here I am again. So certainly glad to be here and representing the city from the mayor's position. You have your agenda before you tonight. Is there approval to approve the agenda as it's placed before the council members?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion been made by Bill Lamline, second by Debbie Pollard. I would like to add one item to the agenda. I would like to add it under item 18. It's a letter that I think the council should be aware of, talking about the Consumer Price Index. I don't know if you're all familiar with that, but this time of year, a letter does come from the Department of Local Government talking about the consumer price indexing, and actually legislative body members are entitled to the cost of living index increase. That's something that I want to give to you, present to you, and you can do with it as you so choose tonight after item 18. So I'd like to add that to the agenda if I may. Is that okay? Deborah? Okay, we have a motion to approve, a second, no further discussion. All those in favor of the motion, let me know, saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, you have your minutes from our January 7th meeting. All these minutes and all this packet has been with the city council since Thursday of this past week, so I'm sure they've had time to look into all the matters before the council tonight. So if there's not discussion on the approval of the minutes, I'll entertain a motion that they be approved as presented and given to you all.
I'll make that
Motion to
motion.
approve.
Go on. No, go on.
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made by Andrea, second by Elsie. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, let me know, saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? See, we're moving pretty fast, folks. Okay, you have before you tonight the payables for January of 2019. Heather Woodcox is here tonight. She helps us in all of our payables division of the city. I've always asked her to be here in the event that someone has a question about any of the payables. So you've seen your payables. Are there any questions or concerns on the payables that you all have in your packets? If not, I entertain a motion that it be approved as presented.
Make a motion to approve the financials presented.
Motion made by Joe Davenport, second by Debbie, that the payables be approved. Any further discussion on that? If not, all those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So much.
If I could add too,
Yes, ma'am.
I know I've spoke to them all one-on-one, but if anybody would like at any time, if they have any questions about any of the payables, or you would like to see a copy of a receipt for any of them, please just contact me and I can email it to you or get you a hard copy, or you can meet me at City Hall and I can answer any questions that you all have or show you.
I'd like to say something on that. I really appreciate that because when I came in and asked to see one of the credit card bills, it just made so much more sense to me that you pull it out and show me instead of making 8 copies of a 10-page bill. And I agree, if you all can do that for us, I think it's wonderful. And I also would like to say how great it is to walk in and see you girls with such big smiles.
Thank you.
Well, they probably just got finished eating. So they were happy. They were very happy. Well, they probably just got finished with donuts from our new donut shop. Well, they'll save you one next time, Debbie. Just come on in. Okay, we have our financial reports before the council. I don't know how familiar you all are with the expenditures, the encumbrances, and appropriations. What that basically is saying is we started out with a general fund budget to begin the year, and as the year has proceeded, this is the year-end, month ending January of 31st. So if you look from left to right, that's how we're tracking what's the income side, what's the expense side, what's the remaining percentage in the budget. So anything that sort of appears to be somewhat of a concern, myself and Stephanie and Heather, we're watching it closely because I've had questions from it about the percentage left in the category, but me being here for 30-something days, they're explaining some of that. But I'm very much aware of watching where we are in our fund balances for each account. So what I would ask you to do, we're talking about the statement of expenditures, encumbrances, and appropriations. Does anyone have any questions pertaining to those 5 or 6 pages?
Yes, John, I do. On the front page, I think it's about the 9th line item down, it's 51528.
Yes, sir.
It's called out as unemployment insurance.
Huh?
I guess I have 2 questions. First one is when did the city start paying for unemployment insurance? And then the second one is obviously, we've got people that's drawing out of the city for unemployment. And
Are you saying, do we have employees drawing from the unemployment insurance at the moment?
we have not carried unemployment insurance in the past. I was wondering when did we start doing that? I'm just not aware that we had.
So what's that, if,
We don't carry unemployment insurance.
Okay.
It's just the unemployment office sends me an invoice for whoever is on unemployment.
Okay. So we do have employees or ex-employees at this time that are drawing on that?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
how many do we have, Stephanie? Do you know that number? Two, okay. Okay, Bill, that's a good question. Anyone else have any further questions on this particular report? If not, we'll move on to the bank accounts. Anyone have any issues in terms of our bank accounts where we have all of our money placed on deposit? And as you see, there's a lot of different accounts there, and we're very much watching these account balances day in and day out to make sure they're holding what they need to be held in each account. Is everyone familiar with this
What,
picture?
I don't remember seeing Super Now account. Is that something, or is that different, or,
It is different. It used to
Okay.
be a money market,
all right?
but with a money market, you can only write so many checks. So it was changed over to a Super Now account, which it does earn more interest than a money market does.
It does or it doesn't?
It does.
It does draw more interest?
It earns more interest
Yeah,
with
and it's
a
not
Super
restricted
Now.
as much for,
Right, you can write as many
okay,
checks
good.
as needed.
I just knew I hadn't seen it before on the bank account, so I wondered what it was. Thank you, Stephanie.
What that's mostly used for, Mayor, would be, as Stephanie, as we make payroll, as we meet our obligations, she will transfer money from the Super Now account into the general fund account, and they're being held at the same bank, being Bedford Loan and Deposit. So that's how she handles the money flow, by using the money she needs to meet the expenses and obligations by moving money between those two accounts. Okay? Okay, so that being said, are there any further questions on these two items before the council? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve the financial report.
Make a motion, we approve the financial report for January of 2019.
Okay, motion been made by Ms. Pollard. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Joe Davenport. Any further discussion on the motion before the council? If not, all those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye.
All right.
Anyone opposed? Y'all have any questions about anything? Good job, good job. Okay, moving right along. Tonight, we have our auditors here, or auditor. This is our annual audit for the year ending June 30th, 2018. It's a very lengthy audit. I will tell the city and the council and everyone here tonight that I have spoken extensively with Mr. Kevin Fisher here. He's with the audit firm of RFH Consultants CPAs. You look at these audits and you want to make sure that the city's in good financial standing in all categories. Typically in all audits, you're going to have some findings, most likely, that they're going to find and I'll say uncover to try to make cities, counties, legislatures work better in their financial reporting. Kevin, I met with he and his partner along with Stephanie and Heather, and we've been through this thing from one end to the other. So he's here tonight to tell the public, to tell the city council, the state of the city, based on a year ending 2018 in June, and this was the year preceding the budget we're in now. So, Kevin, welcome to LaGrange.
Thank you.
Good to have you. So if you'd like to proceed, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. My name's Kevin Fisher, as he introduced me. I'm with RFH CPAs. I'm here to present, this is the fiscal year 2018 audit. So it's for the year ending June 30, 18. The report that I'm giving right now is dated December of 18. So that's important to consider given I'm looking at some new faces. So this audit took place prior to the changes you all have had here in front of me. Each of you should have two things, and I think you do. I'm looking at a green-bound book and a letter. I'm going to cover the book first. Hopefully you all have had a chance to look through it some. The first thing you'll notice is it's pretty lengthy. There's 64 pages. So what I am going to do is take you through what I consider to be the highlights or things that might be of interest to you. And when I'm finished, take questions. And if you think of questions afterwards, please feel free to reach out to me. I know the mayor has my contact information. I know Stephanie does. So happy to take questions and explain things as best I can. So starting with the green-bound book, if you flip to page right after the table of contents, the first thing in here is the auditor's report. So this is a two-page document, and it talks about the city's responsibility, the auditor's responsibility, what did we audit, and at the very bottom of the first page, it gives what the opinion on the audit is. So it says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. The respective financial position of the governmental activities, business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the city of LaGrange, Kentucky, as of June 30, 2018. So what does that mean? That is clean opinion, as good as you can get opinion, is how we explain it. What it means is all the financial numbers that follow this report we believe to be fairly and accurately stated. Okay, so that's the first 2 pages is explaining that, what our opinion is and what we did. After the first 2 pages, on page 3, is management's discussion and analysis. I'm not going to cover this other than to say this is the city's report, and we go through it and we look at the numbers and check them off and make sure that the numbers look good. But the rest of the content in it really is the city's. So that goes from pages 3 to 9, so I can skip, or it goes pages 3 to 10, so we can skip forward to page 11. Now, those of you who have been around for a while and have gone through these financials are familiar with the fact that governmental accounting standards requires the city to report 2 sets of financial statements. One set of financial statements on a full accrual basis, much like a for-profit business, and another set of statements on a modified accrual basis. And the modified accrual basis shows things like capital expenditures, buildings, vehicles, debt payments, all as expenditures, as opposed to capital assets where you capitalize them and paying down debt. This first page, on page 11, the statement of net position, is essentially the city-wide full accrual balance sheet. Okay, it has long-term debt, it has assets. The business type activities is the golf course and the utility commission blended together. All those numbers, the business type activities column is both of them together. The highlights, the balance sheet does not show year over year. I took some notes in the governmental activities column. I'll cover more on the business type activities here in a minute when I get to those statements. But in the governmental activities column, in total, cash is up from fiscal year 17 to fiscal year 18, $1.9 million. If you'll notice down under non-current assets, there's a restricted cash line that has about $2.9 million in it. So the cash went up. A big piece of that is for the occupation tax, which has some restrictions to what it can be used for. But overall, considering those 2 categories together, cash went up $1.9 million. Debt, if you make it down to liabilities, the city's debt in the governmental activities dropped by a little over $1 million. That is representative of the city making all of its required debt payments on time. No additional payments, just the required payments on time, dropped the city's debt from fiscal year 17 to 18 by $1 million. If you were on the council in previous years, you would have heard us speak on the net pension liability. That's going to be under non-current liabilities. So you've heard me kind of explain a little bit about that. The net pension liability is not a cash liability like a debt, like a bond or a notes payable. It's governmental accounting standards requires all the cities across the state to show on their full accrual balance sheet their proportionate share of the unfunded CRS retirement system. So the numbers that you're seeing on net pension liability and net OPEB liability, which I'll talk about here in a second, those are entries that are made at the end of the year to match up to the retirement systems report on what is, they say, is the city's proportionate share of that unfunded system. Our opinion or our thoughts on this, thoughts would be a better way to say it, is the city's exposure related to this is not related to what it shows as 4 million or 5 million across the whole city. The exposure is those CRS contribution percentages that you're going to have to pay in, and what are they going to do? The system's unfunded, has a huge liability. To us, it seems like that percentage is going to keep going up, which results in more expenditures annually within your budget that you have to plan for. Directly under that, the net pension liability, there's something new. There's the net OPEB liability. So governmental accounting standards in previous years did not require the cities to show the unfunded portion of the insurance piece of the retirement system. So the retirement system, the insurance benefits is underfunded based off of their audit and their actuarial analysis. And this year was the first year that they said, you guys have to show it on your balance sheet too. So that number for the city, across the city, is about 1.9 million, about 1.5 million governmental activities, and for the utility commission, about 380,000. So it's the same thing. That number is an entry that is made at the end of the year so that your financials are shown in accordance with governmental accounting standards. It's not a debt where there's an amortization schedule and you have to pay that down every year, or it's not a debt that you can just cut a check for $4 million and say, we want to be done with this. That it is an accounting entry that gets made as part of the audit. So there is, if you so choose, if you go into the footnotes that follow this, there is a bunch of information about that. 7, 8, 9, 10 pages, I'm not sure. There's 8 supplementary schedules in the back that gives you a lot of information about the net pension liability, the net OPEB liability, the assumptions that were made to calculate it, a lot of information. If you guys have any questions about that, we're happy to answer those questions the best we can. So on this page, page 11, the statement of net position or balance sheet, those were the big things. On the next page, page 12, this is the statement of activity. So this is like the government-wide income statement on full accrual, okay? So if you go to the bottom right of this page, it says change in net position. For the governmental activities, it had an increase in net position of $2.1 million. For the business type activities, the golf course and the utility commission had an increase in net position of $5 million. So change in net position is like net income. So this is on a full accrual basis. For the focusing on the governmental activities, which is everything except the golf course and the utility commission, out of that $2 million, about $1.9 million of it comes from the compensation tax, which is restricted. There's another $629,000 that is an entry, that is an accounting entry at the end of the year. So really, if you take out the compensation tax and you account for the accounting entries that are required under governmental accounting standards, outside of that tax, the net income would be about $850,000 for the governmental activities. In the business type activities, I'm going to talk about that here more in a minute. The next page, page 13, is the fund financial statements. So these are showing the governmental funds on a modified accrual basis. So this is a snapshot with not having debt, not having capital assets on the balance sheet. The assets, there's not much change from the previous year other than cash is up, about 1.9 million. Under liabilities, those numbers are all flat. There's not big changes or anything dramatic that's different from the previous years. Okay, so nothing unexpected there. On the next page, page 14, statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes of fund balance. This is for the governmental activities only, and this is on the modified accrual basis as well. And again, there's nothing hugely noteworthy year over year other than to say the city's expenditures were all within the budget in total. And under this basis, it had about a 1.9 million net change in fund balance or net income. The next page, on page 15, statement of net position, it's the proprietary funds. This is going to show you the utility commission and the golf course side by side. A few pages earlier where I said they were lumped together, that statement puts those together, which is required by governmental standards. This statement right here breaks it out for you so you can see the performance of each separate. The utility commission audit was issued. We performed that audit and presented that audit, and it was approved back in September of 18. So all the numbers in this column agree to the utility commission's audit that was done back in September. And then the golf course you can see right next to it. As far as what's on the balance sheet, I talked earlier about the net OPEB liability and the net pension, so I won't go over that again. I covered that. The next page, on page 16, statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in fund net position. This would be the income statement for the utility commission and the golf course. The utility commission had a change in net position of about $425,000, so a net income of about $425,000. Revenues were up by about $40,000. Expenditures were relatively flat, with the exception of they had to pick up the journal entry for the pension and the OPEB liability, which increased their expenditures from an accounting entry by about $128,000. The golf course had a change in net position of $122,000, or you could call it a net income of $122,000. That number is reflective of the golf course paying off debt. Okay, so that $122,000 is from debt, a reduction in the golf course's debt. One thing you'll notice on the golf course, the transfers in from the general fund was up $107,000, so it was $230,000. So that was the number that came over from the general fund to the golf course. That's up by about $107,000 from fiscal year 17. On the next page, the statement of cash flows. Typically, when we present the statement of cash flows, the number that we focus on is net cash provided by operating activities. So how much cash is your operations throwing off, and is it sufficient to cover your debt service and your capital needs? The Water and Sewer Fund, or we call Water and Sewer, this is the Utilities Commission, had net cash provided by operating activities of about $1.3 million. The net cash it needed for capital and debt was $1.1 million, so its cash was sufficient. Its cash that it was generating from operations was sufficient. When those numbers, when there's not enough cash from operations, that's when it signals to cities the potential need for a rate increase in order to generate more revenue. It's right next to it, the golf course had cash flow from operating activities of $62,000. It had cash from capital and related financing activities, so debt and capital needs, of $285,000. So you can see the difference. So generate $60,000 in cash, need $285,000. That's where the money coming from the general fund assists in covering the debt service for the golf course. So those are on the financials themselves. Those are the things that jump out to me that I think are noteworthy. If you guys have questions on them, let me know. Directly after this, there is, from page 18 to 44, these are footnote disclosures. So this is giving you information to support all the numbers you just looked at. So if accounts receivable is aggregated, it breaks it down what's included in that number. It gives you debt amortization schedules. The financials show total debt. It breaks out what the debt issues are, what the interest rates are, when they're going to be paid off, how much you pay a year. It talks about the net pension liability, net OPEB. It just gives a lot of information. That's why there's so many pages. It talks about the financials were restated from June 30, 2017 to June 30, 18. Usually a restatement can indicate an error because, you know, the auditor didn't catch an error or management didn't catch an error. In this case, it wasn't an error. All the cities were required to restate to implement GASB 75, which was the implementation of OPEB, to pick up that net OPEB liability. So when you see restatement, that's something that you're going to see across the cities, across the state. Okay. Directly after the footnotes, on page starting on page 45, are budgetary schedules. So it shows you what this city budgeted for, how much they took in versus the budget, how much the city expended versus the budget. Beginning on page 49 are I mentioned there was I think there's 8 schedules on the net OPEB and net pension liability. So that's just more information on that. And on page 59 breaks out some of the city's smaller governmental funds. It breaks out the Municipal Road Aid Fund, the ABC Fund, and the Bus Fund. So it breaks out in the financial statements you saw previously, all these numbers were lumped together. This schedule gives you a breakdown of how each fund performed. So that is it for the financials. So hopefully on the financials I wasn't too lengthy. It's a lot of information, a lot of good information, in my opinion. Hopefully that what I just covered was helpful. If you go to directly after page 60, page 61. So this book has 2 reports. The first report on page 1 and 2 is the independent auditor's report. So that is essentially, in keeping it short and basic, that is our opinion on the financial statements, that they're presented fairly, okay, that the numbers are accurate. This report right here, as part of being engaged as your auditors, we're required to assess, as part of our audit, the city's internal controls and report in this report if we identify anything within the city's financial management system or financial controls, things that would be considered deficiencies, things that have areas for improvement that could result, if without an audit, in a misstatement of the financials, that they're not presented accurately. Okay, so that's what this report is. At the bottom, if you're following me, it says at the top, it says independent auditors report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance and other matters. There's 3 findings in the current year on this page, and then we also had 1 finding that we considered to be a compliance finding. And that compliance finding can be found on the next page at the bottom of the first paragraph. And I'm going to cover those. If you turn to page 63, it lists them out. So it's going to go 2018-001, 2018-002, 3, and 4. Okay, I'm just going to cover those very briefly. The first finding says the city should have internal controls in place that enable it to accurately record all transactions, including year-end accrual transactions. This was a finding that you had on there last year. You've had on there in previous years. This is related to, if you look at the letter that I'm going to cover here in a minute after this, it has the journal entries on it. There's multiple pages of journal entries. Those are things that we had to come in when we showed up for the audit to make adjustments so that the financial statements were presented, in our opinion, fairly. So this finding right here has been on there for a few years. Previous administration has kind of accepted that as the financials at the end of the day are fair, and we're going to allow the auditor to make those adjustments. Okay. The second finding is the city should have internal controls in place that enable it to prepare complete financial statements. This is, with our clients, we audit over 20 cities, and we audit a lot of other small to mid-sized governmental entities. This is a common finding. In order to avoid this finding, you have to have somebody on staff or a consulting on staff, in our opinion, that has the ability to draft the 60 pages of financial statements and footnote disclosures and all of that. So it's a very common thing that cities will allow the auditor to draft that and accept this as an internal control deficiency. This is something that we've always presented, in our opinion, as not being a big deal. And I think I've probably said that last year to the same effect. On the next page, the third one, cities should have internal controls in place that enable it to reconcile bank account balances to the accounting system. So as part of our audit, we look at the bank reconciliation. So every month you have out of your bank accounts that you cut checks, the bank statement balance will be different than what the books say because somebody might not cash your check for a week or 2 weeks or a month. So during the audit, one of the main accounts wasn't reconciling properly. There was a reason for that. It wasn't fraud or wasn't anything like that. There was some complications with prior audit adjustments and things that happened. So this finding is related to that. So we're saying that all bank accounts should be reconciled timely and monthly. And in this case, out of all, I think you guys alluded to how many bank accounts you have. It was one bank account, and we had it in here because it was an important bank account, and we wanted to emphasize how important it is that that be reconciled. The next finding is what we would consider a compliance finding. It has to do with, it says the city should have all deposits fully insured by deposit insurance or collateralized in accordance with a KRS 91A.060. So the city is required to have on hand collateral from the bank to cover their deposits that are in excess of FDIC insurance coverage. As of June 30, 2018, one of the banks that the city has deposits with didn't have that coverage. So that's where this compliance stems from. The result of that is, well, you know, there's no harm to it. The bank didn't fail. The city has all of its money. It's in here as a compliance finding to point out that the deposit should always be collateralized. Prior to me presenting, as the mayor mentioned, we have had lengthy discussions to cover all four of these findings. Everybody is on the same page regarding them. The fourth finding I just mentioned related to the collateral on the deposits was corrected immediately in January. So that has already been addressed. The issue with the bank rec has been addressed, and there's the discussions on the first two findings. We talked about them extensively, about what kind of plan and how to move forward with that. So that covers everything in the book. So I can stop and take questions on that if anybody has any questions.
Okay, council, you've heard our audit examination, year ending June of 18. Does anyone have any question or concern or point something out to Kevin that you not totally understand?
Kevin, I do have a question. You may or may not be able to answer it, and I'm probably asking it incorrectly.
Okay.
Our debt, our debt to income ratio, in the opinion of the auditor, is it good, bad?
To be honest with you, I didn't calculate your debt to income ratio. I think that the city's, without going through the numbers, the city's debt position is in a very strong position. I think I talked about it last year, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the vast majority of the city's debt is scheduled to be paid off in 8 years. You have that restricted cash account that has about $2.9 million in it that could be used for debt. I believe there's discussions about that. So I don't know what the ratio is. I didn't calculate it during the audit. I suspect that it's very good.
Well, let me ask it in a different way.
Okay.
In looking at our debt and income compared to other cities of about our size, where do you think we are in the scheme of things?
I think related to your debt, you're in a strong position relative to other cities your size. It might be a different answer. It might be a different answer without the compensation tax. It might be a different answer if the debt was scheduled, the debt service needed another 30 years. But the amount you're paying and the amortization of it to be paid off over 8 years, the vast majority of it is very good. The Utility Commission is generating cash to handle its debt service on its own. So I think in my experience with other cities that I've seen, you'd like to have no debt, but in comparison to what other cities are dealing with and the needs of their citizens, I think that the city's position with that is in pretty good shape right now.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
In your letter, you mention the bus fund
Right.
running at a negative. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So you jumped me. I was going to do that next, but that's okay. I'll tell you what. Let me do this letter real fast, and I'll get to it. I'll cover that for you. So in front of you is that letter that I mentioned. So this letter for those, if it's maybe your first year, is a required communication that auditors have with those charged with governance. In this case, you all. And there's several things that is in this letter. A lot of the verbiage, if you read it every year, stays the same. The way I like to explain it is it's an opportunity to communicate certain things with management at the end of the audit, or those charged with governance. It talks about what estimates were made that are on the financial statements in front of you. The biggest ones, the pension liability and the OPEB liability. That's an estimate, because nobody knows what the right number is. It's an analysis based off of assumptions, okay? Directly at the very bottom of the first page of that letter, it says difficulties encountered in performing the audit. There weren't any. We did not have any issues. If we did have issues, we had disagreements, we had trouble, we couldn't get records, this would be a place that we would put that and talk about that. On the next page, corrected and uncorrected misstatements. So it talks about, did we find misstatements and were they corrected? So there were part of the first finding that I talked about where we had to do audit adjustments to get the financials to be presented accurately. So there were adjustments. They have all been posted. We're in agreement on the adjustments, and they're actually attached to this letter. So you'll see it says Schedule of Adjustments, Grange, Kentucky. That does not include the Utility Commission. The Utility Commission is completely separate. Okay, I haven't mentioned that. Those findings had the Utility Commission audit didn't have a finding, didn't have the audit adjustment finding, or they're separate from that. I should have mentioned that earlier, but I didn't. So those adjustments are just for the golf course, the general fund, and all the other governmental funds. On that page 2, disagreements with management, we didn't have any disagreements. It talks about some of the supplementary information, gives you more information about the financial statements and our roles and management's roles. On the third page, came up to your question. So the bus fund, the city's payroll function, how the payroll works is the general fund pays for the bus fund's payroll and the bus funds to reimburse the general fund. That's a fine process. There's nothing wrong with that process. That's just a function, but you can change it if you want, but there's nothing really wrong with that process. What we're pointing out here is that during the year, the general fund didn't reimburse the bus fund. And really that should be happening. The financials are presented accurately. There's not money missing. It's just an issue of when the general fund pays for the bus fund payroll, the bus fund needs to then kick the money back over to the general fund. So because of this issue with payroll, and there's probably some other invoices, I don't remember exactly. As of the end of the fiscal year, the general fund, or the bus fund, owed the general fund $339,000. And as of June 30, 2018, the bus fund didn't have all the cash needed to do that. So as a result, that's going to be, the bus fund had a negative fund balance, had its liabilities exceeded its assets by $76,000. So that's going to be a budget, in my opinion, would be a budget question for the city going forward and how to address that. Our feeling on that is we just wanted to make sure, let you know that we feel like those transfers should happen timely, so that the money is in the right place. Again, it's not missing, just so the money is in the right place. It's in the general fund so that it can be used for appropriations. So that's the first thing we pointed out. The second one had to do with the ABC fund. I know that I mentioned it last year. I think we talked extensively about this. I think you guys know all about it. We just want to make sure we continue to point it out. Just look at it, look at the allocation percentages, look at how you're doing, look at how you're allocating the expense to it. That's really about it. That's all we really want to accomplish with pointing that out to you. If you guys have any questions or we can assist with that, we would like to be able to do that. The third comment was we did note one deposit that was made in the general fund that was for the golf course. And it was an error, and it should have been transferred over. It didn't go missing. It just came in, got put in the wrong place. So we wanted to mention that, to point out, maybe to look at your controls and make sure, that type of instance doesn't happen again. So did I answer? Okay.
Are you talking about a specific piece of revenue from the golf course that came to the city that
Right.
did not get placed in the right fund?
Yeah, it hit the wrong bank account in error.
Now, what kind of money are you talking about? Were you talking about a land sale, a piece of a sale, or just income in general to the golf course, or what?
It was from the OLDA. OLDA pays the golf course, I think annually, I think it's $11,000.
Right.
And they sent it, it was an error where it just went to the wrong place. It went to the wrong account, and it got identified during the audit because we were looking at, did OLDA pay what they were supposed to, and where is it? And, and that's how we came across it. I believe immediately after we drew attention to that, that money was transferred. So I think it's in the right place now. And also part of the confusion is I think at City Hall, that account that it goes in is maintained there, so.
I think, as far as the council is concerned, on your bank accounts, what Kevin's referring to is a ongoing agreement between OLDA on some land sales where they're reimbursing, OLDA's paying the debt, and then they're giving it back to the city, that the golf course is. It's $11,074.03. And in that account, Kevin, for the Eagle Creek Golf Course, in the reserves, they have $114,728.27. That's the account you're talking about, right?
Yes, that sounds right, yep.
So probably one of those $11,000 payments was misplaced. That's what you're saying.
Put in the wrong bank account. Yeah. Yeah, and it's in the right place now.
Isn't that due to mature?
Excuse me?
Isn't that due to mature?
Uh,
There's not but just a year or so left, or 2 years?
I think there's more than a year. I think if I
It doesn't
have
make that, I know it's getting close.
I think it's probably four or so. I remember when it started years ago, and I think it began on an 11-year note, $11,000 or so a month.
For green space.
There should be 3 years, including fiscal year 19. So the year you're in now plus 2 more years,
Okay,
I think is what it is.
thank you, Kevin.
Okay, you still on your findings, or?
Oh, no, I'm good. So I've covered everything that I wanted to cover. So if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Anyone have any further questions for Kevin?
It actually seems like he's done a good job on telling us what we need to do and what we don't need to do and what's happening, and doing it very comprehensively. Usually you can't understand what the audits are because they're confusing, but this wasn't.
Good.
Thank you.
Good, I'm glad to hear that.
We talked extensively about correcting, and
Well,
we're
that happens. You have to have that. Yeah.
on board with what he's saying, and I think usually, typically, regardless what audit you hear about and it's presented, there's always some findings, or else we wouldn't need you all. There wouldn't be anything wrong with this, but that seems like across the board. There's always some findings about how some books are being kept, and that's what your all's job is, to point those things
Right.
out and make us do better.
Yeah, I mean, even with, typically even with a city that doesn't have a fund, there's always room for improvement. I mean, there's always something that you notice that you can do differently or you can do better.
On the golf course itself, you stated the income was 61,000 or so, Kevin. They made 61,000, but I would just like to point out to the people and the citizens of our community, I think on our assets of the golf course, as far as net assets, I think we're at, what, 2.5 million? And basically, that's in land that's owned by the golf course itself. Well, the city owns it, but then you have a asset there, cash asset, or that converts, it's not cash, it's in land, and what the golf course actually would be worth.
Right, the book value, I can't, the assets that are shown on the balance sheet are at book value. So that's the purchase price less any depreciation. So the book value of the golf course's assets is 2.3 million. That's net of depreciation. As far as the fair market value, I can't, I really wouldn't have a stab at that. It's not presented at fair value. But yeah, 2.3 million is the book value. There's 1.6 in land and 2.3 in land improvements.
As far as the pension liability, I know we talked and you said you loaded in $600,000 in as a load in on the pension liability that we could be faced with, based on what the legislature does and making sure our employees or the state's taking care of what they're going to be needing. Could you talk to that?
Yeah, so what I was meaning to say was if you look at page 12, this is the full accrual financial statements for the governmental activities. It says change in net position 2.1 million. So about 629,000. There was a journal entry and an accounting entry to show the pension and OPEB liability. So an additional 629,000 in expenditures is showing up here. So if you were to back that out, the change in that position would be closer to 2.8 million because that is an accounting entry. The city's exposure related to the pension and the OPEB is right now is the CRS required percentage that you pay in for each employee. Offhand for fiscal year 19, I don't remember what it is. It was 19 and some percent for every dollar of payroll for non-hazardous employees, so everyone except the police, and for the police it was a little over 30%. So the city's exposure, from everything I understand and talking around, continues to be at this point, what is that percentage going to be? There's a big liability. It seems like it's going to go up. So did that answer?
It's going to go up to keep the pension system funded.
Right. Yeah. So right now it's saying if the unfunded liability is saying with the money they have, the projections that they've made, they make assumptions. They make assumptions on earnings, how much the money they have is going to earn, how long people are going to work, what age are they going to retire, how long are they going to live. You know, they make all these assumptions that get you to this number. You're all, when I talk about the contribution percentage, right now they're saying with all those factors and their actuarial analysis and the valuation they've done, there's not enough money. And there's not enough money with what's being paid in. So if you don't have enough money and you have a liability, how do you pay that? You have to pay more in. So it seems to me, and a lot of just my experience and following it a little bit, those decisions, sometimes politics comes into play, and maybe it should be higher already, and it's not. You know, one year it went down. You know, you have a liability, and it went down. I don't know. So, but that's what I mean by that, by the percentage. So, my opinion, as of now, and talking with other cities and the other cities that I work on, it's really the exposure is when you do your budget at the end of the year, or at the beginning, before the beginning of the year, and you're looking at what is your retirement expense going to be, you know, it seems like you can almost count on that's going to go up per employee. You know, if you have less employees, then it might not go down as much, but.
Well, it can go up percentage-wise per employee, but what they could also do, maybe while they're in session in Frankfurt, they could, if they need an infusion of money, they could probably come back to the cities and the counties and anybody in the system and probably assess them yearly, depending on what kind of money they need.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak to that. I mean, maybe. That's not something I haven't heard that yet, but you could be right on that.
Okay, we've heard a lot of information here tonight, you all. And I promise you, and promise the folks here, that we will correct these issues you pointed out. And I think your friend Bradley, I think he was with you last time. He
Yep.
understands where we are.
Yep.
So certainly appreciate you coming here. If there's no more questions for the council, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion from the council that this audit be accepted as presented. And motion made by Elsie, second by Debbie Pollard. Is any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Thank you so much, Kevin.
All right, thank you all very much. Thanks
Appreciate
for
it.
having me.
Yes, sir.
If you have any questions, let me know.
Right.
Thank you.
I'm sure we will.
That's good.
Okay. We have a little young Boy Scout sitting on our front row today. He's with what troop, 200? Would you like to come up and introduce yourself so you can get on TV and let everyone know you're here tonight? And is that your son? Okay, well, why don't you say hello and give us your name. Come right up here if you like to. And tell us what you're here for tonight, and you're probably working on a certain type of badge, right? Just come on up and speak to the microphone and tell us what you're about.
So I'm here from...
Speak loud so everybody can hear you.
So I'm here from Troop 200. My name is Steven, and I'm here for a citizenship merit badge that I'm doing in Boy Scouts right now, and I'm trying to finish that up so I can, finish the merit badge.
Okay, well, great. Think we're doing okay so far?
I guess.
Okay. Okay, he says we're doing okay. All right, well, thank you for coming tonight, and you're welcome anytime, young man. Appreciate your service. Okay, let's see. Right now, we're going to go into public comment. Anyone here tonight would like to speak publicly to the city council? I hope you were able to pick up a little notification out front, sort of stating what the rules and the guidelines are for public comment. We always welcome anyone to come and speak to us, so at this time, I'll open the floor for public comments, so please come on up. Please give us your name and address and be ready to go.
Rick Noel, 1180 Pattons Creek, Pendleton, Kentucky, owner of the Old Oak Frame House, the oldest business in LaGrange. A couple of comments. First, I'd like to thank Mayor Black for the superb cleaning of the sidewalks and entrances during the 2 snow events we had. And I think you used the prisoners to do it, and they did an outstanding job, and the merchants appreciate it. The second, public comment, last time I asked if, for city council to consider limiting truck traffic on Main Street. I'd like to state that maybe we should just lower the speed limit to maybe 5 miles per hour from the skate park to the laundromat area. And the reason is for safety. We got small children, we have a crosswalk, we got parking on both sides of the street. And when you got traffic going through at 15 miles an hour and you got cars pulling in and out and people and small children walking out between cars, and vehicles can't stop at that rate of speed. So I'd like to just offer that, that would be agreeable to me and others. And I'd like to ask council for status, you know, where we're at.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, Rick, Mr. Noel. We're going to be appointing some committees tonight, and once these committees are established, things like that, they will take them into consideration, and we'll look at them and see perhaps what merit they have to be maybe changed to, and for the benefit of the downtown area or any area, and that's sort of where we'll be heading with these type of issues that are being brought to us. So we want our folks to be safe on Main Street. Do not get ran over when they're coming between two cars, but we'll just have to look into it further.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else tonight like to speak during our public comment time? Yes.
Richard W. Rankin, 519 Horton Road, LaGrange, Kentucky. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 committee people was on this committee when they decided to raise our taxes out there on Moody Lane to pay for their mistake. I'm tired and fed up with you taking the taxes out on me when I didn't want this land to begin with, out there on Moody Lanes behind the Rollins Group. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've been there before and I don't mind being wrong. You know, that's what life is. But was there a statement made that we was not going to purchase any more land until this property was paid off? Hello? Any of you can answer me. I don't care which one of you do.
What are you referring to?
I'm referring, did y'all buy a piece of land across from the church?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask that question again. Maybe you didn't hear me. Was the agreement when y'all raised our taxes out there behind the Rollins Group to pay, you're shaking your head, Elsie, what's the matter? That we wasn't going to buy no more land until this land was paid for, and y'all, the city council, was going to quit taking money out of our salary when you raised the taxes. Okay. Y'all's turn. You wasn't here. I understand, but there's one, and I don't mind pointing fingers.
I was not on the council at that time.
Okay, then 1, 2, 3, 4 was on this council when y'all agreed to raise our taxes. You agreed to add the taxes. Ms. Pollard said, well, I work in Louisville and I pay the city taxes in Louisville. I heard that, fine. You don't, I understand that. But what I understood y'all to say when we come up here and complained, you're adding a tax to a piece of land that you're going to pay off. Can I go out there and deer hunt? That's another question, yes or no?
No.
Okay. Oh,
Just
okay.
don't want you shooting somebody out there.
Well,
You
you could tell I was. But, you know,
we're not going to allow deer
y'all,
hunting.
I ain't going to point finger. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Richard,
Mr.
yes,
Rankin?
I do remember, and I remember him saying that we were not to do anything to raise any occupational tax again. We were going to sunset the tax as soon as Oldham Reserve was paid off. No, it's not paid off.
Then my question to you again,
Tax was it?
my question to you again, you four that was sitting there when this was done.
The occupational tax.
Why are we buying land again? Why,
We didn't get
why
the
cannot,
occupational tax
Ricky,
in. We didn't
hold on a
get it till
second,
later.
please.
No, it didn't come
I
till.
don't know this. 'Cause
I
wasn't
know you
here.
don't, and that's why I'm asking
but
before it's on
gonna
here.
I doubt very seriously that when they had to impose the tax to meet the debt of Oldham Reserve, even though you're suggesting they said that we're not going to buy any more land, well, I doubt that they said that. You know, I wouldn't think they would have said that because they.
I don't remember saying we
why
were
they
buying
wouldn't-
land.
Why they
would.
wouldn't, Rick, and you know as I do.
Okay.
If we need to buy a piece of land to add to our park system, to add for a skateboard park or something
park,
in
whatever.
in the benefit of our kids and our citizens, then we're not gonna have committed ourselves, probably, I hope, years ago, that there's no more investment made anywhere for the benefit of our community. So I don't think they said that. I wouldn't think they would have.
Well, the statement was, and you can read it back, is that we do not need to purchase any more land till this debt's paid off, because we raised the taxes, we put a tax bill on people to pay y'all's debt. I don't see it. If I go buy me a 1997 pickup truck, and I work for the city, should y'all pay for it?
Everything bottomed out.
I'm asking a question. That's yes or no.
Well,
As mayor at
but-
that time,
Hold on a second.
let me answer this, John. There was no promise to anyone that more land would not be bought after that. I don't know where you got that conclusion, but it is incorrect.
Okay, so I'm wrong.
You are wrong, yes, sir.
I think that the occupational tax came in about 2010, didn't it? And was it stated that it was to pay for the land? I did not know, was it? Was it to help pay for the land?
Yes, the taxes were
Yes.
raised to pay for.
So, now, that's not,
Excuse
the
me, hold
purchase
on.
was made in 2005, I think, and this is not until 2010 that must have happened. I was not here when the occupational tax was put in. No, I wasn't. 2013?
Let's don't.
I wasn't there then. I was out in
Okay,
10.
so,
It was 2013 is when they did it.
Question, why?
I think I've answered that.
And, okay, if you're saying, you're sitting there and telling me, I'm gonna buy a piece of property so I could put a skate rink here, I could put a water park here.
Yeah.
You've got the land out there, why don't you use it instead of buying land?
And remember what the country, in
Not
2008,
it's not in a master
2009.
plan, Dip, on that land. There's a master plan, and that, the occupational tax is completely different from what we take. That is not touched for anything except Oldham Reserve. That's strictly it. It doesn't go for anything else. So if we buy a piece of property across the street from a church, that's not anything to do, that money, it doesn't come out of that money.
It don't come out of the occupational tax
No,
for
sir.
the.
No,
No,
sir.
sir.
broad
No,
street.
sir.
No.
No.
It sure
No,
doesn't.
that's strictly, that occupational tax was strictly done to pay off the debt for the land
The
at Oldham
Rollins Group
Reserve.
land. We
That's
gonna
it.
call it the Rollins
And
Group.
nothing else comes out of that.
Yeah, okay.
It's all been, yeah. Matter of fact,
That helps
it's,
me tremendously.
anything that can be done at Oldham Reserve can come out of that. That's in a separate account.
You know, for me being where I'm at, I'm approached so many times about, you know, out-of-state workers, if they work for the company I work for, then they get taxed. And they can't understand them making $4,000 a week, month, whatever they make, and there's $300 taken out for their taxes to pay for a piece of land that half of them will never see. They never did understand to begin with, you know. But that, I mean, I don't understand it, but I do understand it.
Right.
And far as the gentleman making the comment of rolling that speed limit to 5 miles an hour, it ain't gonna happen, people, because I drove one in for 38 years, and I got to have 7.5 miles an hour to go to second gear. And I'm not going down Main Street, you want me to use that Jake brake and wake the whole town up. I mean, I can do that, you know that. I mean, but,
Okay.
Very good point.
thank
All
you
right.
very much. I'll see you next.
Thank you, Deb.
Okay, anyone else like to come up and speak during public comment?
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Kirkwood, 1515 Dawkins Road, LaGrange, Kentucky. And my question is, since you're doing the audit, I've heard of something called the LaGrange Fund. And I'm wondering, is that part of the audit? Because I didn't hear that mentioned.
LaGrange what, I'm sorry?
Fund, the LaGrange Fund?
I have no idea what the
The
LaGrange
LaGrange
Fund-
Foundation,
Okay, that's what it is.
And
Yeah,
it is in the audit.
in
okay.
the audit, yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted to
Yes,
know. 'Cause
LaGrange Foundation.
I didn't know if it was part of this or if it was a whole separate thing. Okay, so if we want to look up something about the LaGrange Foundation, we can go to that audit or go to the office and find out where the money comes from, what it's spent for,
Yes, ma'am.
blah, blah, blah.
Yes, ma'am. And I'm
Okay.
looking at it right now. The City of LaGrange Foundation is at Bedford, and it has, 71,386.85.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I presume that money was offered to the city for certain purposes. There might be parts of it restricted for certain things to take place in the city. So I'm not sure what the restrictions are on that account balance, but I'm sure there are
Yeah.
some.
Yeah, so it's not just petty cash.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay.
It's protected, and some of the past city council members might know someone who made a contribution to the
Right,
fund
right.
and was actually earmarked for something specifically.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, who else?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Albert Harrison. I live at 114 McMakin Manor. I'm here tonight as a resident of the city, a taxpayer of the city, a business owner in the city, and I pay taxes and licenses for everything to operate here. Several people had asked me after they heard the discussion or saw it on television of the city council last month about the purchase over here on Main Street. I was here for that meeting. I left when y'all went into executive session. I didn't understand how you did that, because you used the exception out of the Open Meetings Act that enables you to go into executive session for discussion of the purchase or sale of real estate if the public disclosure of it, or the location, would affect the price. And before you went into closed session, the mayor announced the address of the property. So it was made public before you went into executive session.
I did not announce any address where we're going to talk to. Sorry. I didn't.
Address.
Why would I do that?
The address,
The address of the property? I didn't give it.
309.
Well, look.
Okay,
at-
that's fine.
Okay.
If we've read that, I came tonight hoping I'd be able to hear the minutes, because I wanted to see or hear what the result was after your executive session. But we don't get to hear the minutes, so we don't know. They're not online, so we can't read them. So I think if we don't have access to them, at least you could do, maybe is read the minutes here for the next meeting. Just a suggestion. I had several people ask me, similar to Mr. Rankin, why the city is spending our money to buy more land when we owe a mountain of debt on what's out there. I understand the argument on that. But as a surveyor, I spend a lot of my time in the courthouse researching records. And it kind of piqued my interest to see where this 309 was, but I didn't know for sure. So in doing the research and surveying, a lot of what we do is history. So we don't look at just today's deed. We look at the deed before that, the deed before that, to see where it all came from, which I did this morning, and it was surprising to find, because when I left here last month, I thought you were going to discuss purchasing the property, and apparently decided to buy it, because on January 24th, there was a deed filed from TSE Investment to the city of LaGrange for the property at $35,000. So I went to the deed before that to see where the property came from, and there was a quit claim deed filed 2 days prior to that from one out-of-state corporation to another out-of-state corporation. These companies seem to make a living buying up property at commissioner sales. So the one corporation in Dallas sold to the corporation in Milwaukee with a very similar name their property at 309 with a price tag of $7,946.25. 48 hours later, they flipped it and sold for $35,000. So I went one more deed back to see where did this come from. And back in 2017, there was a commissioner's sale and a commissioner's deed from the city of LaGrange to the company out of Dallas, Texas. Basically, a sale at the courthouse door to satisfy a tax lien. So the company that got eventually on January 22nd got $8,000 for the property. They bought it in June of 2017 for $100. So we paid $35,000 for a $100 piece of ground. And I don't understand financing or city financing, but it seems something there just doesn't quite fit. That we could have cut a better deal, maybe not cut a deal at all. But maybe we should have bought the land in 2017 for $100. Well, I'm not sure that everybody was aware of that background, so I'm providing it. Thank you.
I think the past city council members who've been here for a number of years know that this actual piece of property was something that the city in the past administration's been trying to buy for approximately a year or so. It's across from DeHaven Baptist Church. The address is 309 West Main. Right now, the city has a downtown green space plan that's being passed around to different folks, the Green Space Committee. They're going to be doing public hearings, but this particular property is set right in the middle somewhat to this whole tract of land that the city council previously has been trying to acquire as they can. I think in the last year, they bought 3 pieces of property down there to add to this eventual green space idea that's going to be certainly I think a great asset to downtown LaGrange. Just so happened, this particular house, as Albert said, has been through a lot of different types of foreclosures, tax sales at the courthouse door, and we're going to talk about it later. It's on the agenda, but we did go into closed session to try to work with and purchase that piece of property that had not been accomplished till the day I came into office. Joe worked hard on it. Stephanie Winther worked hard on it with our code enforcement board, trying to track down who this property belonged to, who actually had a title to it. Then Beach, our city attorney, went to work on it in January and has worked tirelessly to bring this deal to a close. I want to applaud Beach Craig Mile for working. We were dealing with folks, start with, first folks were TSC Investments. Then I dealt with a person in Detroit. I didn't ask him where he was in Detroit, but he's in Detroit, and we were able to get him to agree to sell us the property. Prior to buying the property, as we always do as public agencies, I had an appraisal done on the property and also pulled the tax records on what the property was valued at here in LaGrange, where it sits. The property assessment value of the property is $92,000. The appraisal on it came back at 92, maybe, and some change. So to say that we bought and gave too much for a piece of property when it's on our tax records at 92,000 presently, and it was sitting right in the middle of a tract of land that we're trying to put together for the betterment of our downtown, then at 35,000, we felt like that was a fair deal regardless what the guy paid for it. We were in a situation that we had other folks bidding against us, as he told myself. And through the approval of the city council during the closed session, they gave me the approval to go up to $35,000 if I can get this property acquired. And that's what happened. Now we have the property. We're going to try to restore the property to the point that it can be. And it's going to be a center focal point of our downtown green space project idea that's going to probably go for years into the future. We've got folks in the audience tonight that are working on the project, the downtown greenscape idea. There's a public hearing on March the 2nd, and it's going to contain different things that we think will bring many different types of folks to our downtown area to do different opportunities in our city. So we consider it an asset at $35,000. The person who had it and owned it had $22,000 worth of liens against it with the city of LaGrange, had a $1,900 outstanding tax bill with Oldham County. So regardless of what he gave for it, he had $26,000 that he's going to have to come up with to get out. And since the council felt it was important that we acquire this property and not let's get away from us right in the middle of our green space idea, that's what happened. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate that explanation, but I think there's a point of order here that somebody should have caught. It's my understanding from the Open Meetings Act here in Kentucky, you cannot make a decision or take any action in an executive session. You cannot even make a motion in executive session.
Can they make a motion?
You said the council decided in this closed session to
Decide
purchase
what
the
I can go
property.
up to in closed session.
That's a decision.
But
No, that's all
Understand-
supposed to be in the open, Mayor.
Well,
Transparency, that's what it is. All that discussion should have been out here. That's all.
okay.
We need to start doing what's called for in the Open Meetings Act.
Well, I'm
It's there
sure
for a
you'll do
reason.
it with your fiscal court. When you get seated in your fiscal court, you'll have the same discussions in closed session as we did to buy this piece of property, Mr. Harrison.
I don't know anything about that.
Well, you will find out
Okay?
how it works.
Well, I'm not here.
How it works.
I'm here as
You
an
will find
individual.
out. So,
And a taxpayer.
Okay.
And a businessman.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here.
good. And I tell you what we did to get the piece of property bought. Fair and square.
That's not fair and square, but thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Name is David Newton, 1611 Road Court. This green space sounds like a great idea. I love new parks and stuff, but I also would like to concentrate on maintaining our existing parks and areas, making restrooms where my daughter, stepdaughter, wife can properly use a restroom that is clean and sanitary. So I would really like that brought up too. And do we have any idea about a budget that's been created yet for this new green space? Are we going to be able to maintain it? Is it going to be are we going to be taking on a more of a maintenance structure on another piece of land that we don't quite take care of the current green spaces that we have now? So that's my only concern with that is let's get all these other places up to date and see what we can do with those. But as far as the new green space, great idea. Just as long as we can maintain it for our families to enjoy and they don't avoid it because they don't have proper maintenance. Thank you.
What, Mr. Newton, what specifics you talking about in terms of restrooms in our present
Well,
parks?
the
that are
restrooms
not-
at Wilburn, the Wilburn Park restrooms have been in disrepair for a couple years. It's just common weekly maintenance issues. They're not very sanitary at all. A lot of, sometimes there's graffiti. Graffiti doesn't really stick around long, but
They go in and they
general-
bash them.
the general sanitary items are lacking whenever I've been there. So we usually don't spend a whole lot of time there anymore, which is unfortunate because we do have some great parks and stuff. So,
Appreciate your comments, and our Parks Board Chairman's sitting here tonight, so he's hearing exactly what you're saying about the parks he oversees, and we will promise you do our best with what we have as well, but we will try to do our best what we have, but we also want to think about what could be also in the future as well. So, but we appreciate your input for coming here.
well, so I understand sometimes messes happen. Is there any way we could have a supply at hand so that if we go in and it's unsanitary, perhaps even if the supplies are there, we can take care of it ourselves and we can provide a clean environment for our kids and families and stuff, even if we have to do it ourselves. But there's never any kind of disinfectants or anything like that. But right, well,
That'd be sort of hard to oversee, because if we had disinfectants down there, I'm sure they'd end up everywhere except where they're supposed to be. If the
How about-
public, if the public
Be
could get to
drinking
them.
How about cameras down there?
Well, we,
So how about
hey,
we monitor them,
okay.
okay?
Cameras are not a bad idea. That's just stuff we're learning and hearing from you, and certainly you came last meeting, and I appreciate you coming back this time, Mr. Newton. So thank you for comments.
I would assume that the cameras we have are working. Is that not true? Why not? Are you kidding me? You know what they cost?
Far as the cameras, though, I personally at this time do not know anything about the cameras at any of our parks. Maybe you older council people do that have been here on past councils, but I'm not sure if we have cameras there or not. But supposedly there are. Okay, thank those so far that have come up for open comment. Anyone else like to come at this time? If not, I'll go ahead and close the public comment section of our meeting. And is Ms. Karen Eldridge here? To give her,
She's not here, but she did ask that I announce that the Green Space Committee will be meeting on Friday, February 22nd at 8:30 in the morning at 208 East Main. That's at the Visitor Center. And also what the mayor had said, that on Saturday, March 2nd, they're at the library here in LaGrange, the main library. We're going to be having a public forum to share some of the green space ideas with the public, get your feedback, and kind of take that to the next step with the committee and continue to develop the ideas.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton, Ms. Mary Bolton. Okay, Karen Eldridge's not here. She's our Main Street Downtown Coordinator, so she usually has a report, but I guess she's away out of town this week.
Mayor, you have the written report in front of you. You should
Okay.
have.
Would anybody like to give highlights on the written report? Anyone familiar enough with it?
One thing is we have the chocolate crawl this coming Saturday, which is a lot of fun, and it's pretty important.
And I also wanted to mention that Karen told me we're going to be having a morning news spot on Friday morning. I believe it's WLKY. So I know my bakery's going to be doing a little hosted spot in the back, and it's to promote the chocolate crawl. So I think it's different spots from 5 a.m. through 7 a.m. So you might check that out.
You're the only one up at that point.
Yes, I'll be awake.
Okay. Friday the 8th, okay. Okay, item 10 is our LaGrange Utilities Report. Mr. Ted Chisholm. Why don't you come on up, Mr. Chisholm, and tell us about your report. We've already heard you got plenty of money from the auditors. But that's good, good shape, good job.
Spend plenty of money too.
Good job. Yes, sir.
Need to spend plenty. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I just wanted to speak tonight on a little bit on, if you noticed that all the new council members, the old council members know, Interstate 71 is on your council report. You're going to see it for a long time now, so I just wanted to explain that that's a project that we are doing a rehab in Interstate 71. It will be running from down in behind Mr. Pollard's parlor, Winnie Bowling's parlor, Dr. Kemp Rogers' parlor. Then it goes out in Interstate. It runs about 1,500 feet. Then it crosses over and goes to our south pump station. That's been on the agenda now for about 5, 6, 7 years, something like that with that project. We bid that out in December. We're going through all the process with the state now. We're having a pre-construction meeting this Friday, and so you'll probably start to see some construction on that. You'll see new signs on the interstate. You're going to see people, construction people coming in on Parker Avenue. And I just wanted to let you new council people know that that's what that is. You'll see that on your report probably every month, and we'll be proceeding with that. And hopefully the interstate job, the first phase of it, should be finished up no later than October of this year. And then we'll start the second phase, which will be the new pump station over below the hospital on Moodley Lane on that section of the project. Any questions from anyone? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ted. Yes, sir. Okay, tonight, next item is a nomination of a City of LaGrange police chief. As most of you know, I attempted and very much tried to bring a nominee forward at our first city council meeting, but understandably, I was not able to get that accomplished, which appreciate the council and their comments and their reasoning. I understand that and accepted it and decided to move ahead. I will tell you that in the choosing of this nominee for tonight, I met with a number of different persons whom were referred to me as a possibility to be our police chief. They were from all avenues of law enforcement outside the county, inside the county. Some from out of state wanted to be interviewed that were moving to Oldham County. But I did not choose them because they were just moving here. But I did actually talk very much so to 4 or 5 individuals, and I will report to you that they were very, very qualified. However, I only had one person I could choose to be our chief of police, and as the ordinance called for, I sent all the council members my nominee to be our police chief 10 days in advance of tonight's meeting. Hopefully, if you've had time to review his resume, if you needed to do research, you need to ask questions about the nominee that I'm placing before you tonight, then I was hopeful you would do that. And please do your due diligence in looking at this nominee. Tonight, I bring you, I'm going to call him a young man. He's young compared to me, but his name is Greg Collette. And for you who don't know Greg probably been here, he's been here all of his life, went to Oldham County High School. I've known the Collette family for years. He's got very fine parents who live in Buckner, and he submitted a resume to me. Greg's just a fine man. That's all I can say about him. And I think his resume speaks for itself. I think his years of experience with Oldham County Police for 27 years, if he hasn't seen it all, I don't know who would. When I was looking at nominees, I was talking to folks from out of the county who are in the business, and they may have been a sergeant for many years, but they were a sergeant in just a certain division. They didn't get a taste of the whole operation. So even though they had 25 years experience for other nominees I looked at, but they were put into places that they were sergeant, but it's just sergeant for accident reconstruction or something. It wasn't overall putting the whole department oversight in front of them. And with Greg, I felt like with 16 years as a detective sergeant with the Oldham County Police and finishing up as major with the Oldham County Police, first person to Chief Greg Smith, I felt like Greg has had the necessary experience to have seen everything: accident reconstruction, homicides, burglary, drugs, you name it, across the board. He's been involved with it during his 27 years, I do believe. Greg's here tonight, and along with his wife, Tamara, they're here. I will say this about Greg, that we have police officers here tonight, and I appreciate them being here. For those who are here tonight, I see 3 or 4 out there, and regardless who's the chief, we're going to have a fine police department. And I know Greg's a man of integrity, and if he's chosen here tonight, he will go to the police department under my direction and said, you're there, going there to put a great public presence on our police department, working with these officers, meeting the public, getting out in the public. We're not going to not know, the public's not going to know who our police officers are. They've got to be involved with the public, the business sector, the residential sector, and that's what I'm expecting out of all policemen and everyone associated with the police department. Bruce Goodflesh, he's been running the department since Chief Conway left our department, and I want to thank Bruce for that tonight because he's done an excellent job and he's here with us, and I appreciate Bruce doing what I asked him to do, and he's done it. I appreciate that, Bruce. So that being said, I don't know if the council would like to speak on the subject, but Greg's back here. He'd be glad to try to answer any questions if there are questions. But otherwise, that's who I'd like to place in front of you all. The Kentucky legislature passed a few years ago because there was a shortage of police officers across the state, and they allowed retired police officers to come back to cities, counties, and sheriff's department under a contractual basis through their retirement, and was put in place just for this specific purpose. I'm bringing Greg to you all where his retirement is already paid by the state, so the city will not be matching or putting up any retirement funds for Greg. His health insurance is fully paid, so that in itself will be a huge savings to our city for those two items, his retirement and also the health part of it. But the legislature allowed that to be done so cities could hire some retired police officers either as officers themselves and be a part, stay in the business. Greg currently is the school security officer at the East Oldham campus under the direction of Chief Smith, Oldham County Police. So Greg loves that job. He loves those kids over there. I hear the teachers talking about him a lot. The kids like him, as does the whole campus. And I appreciate all these officers who are serving throughout Oldham County every day through this school security system. I want to applaud the school board for placing those officers in these school settings. That's got to be giving some peace to the parents and knowing that we have officers on site of our school system. So that being said, we have Greg here tonight, and I would like to recommend him on a one-year contract. That's not means he's just going to be here for 1 year and he's going to be gone, but under the statute, I can hire him as our chief for 1 year at a time with a renewal date 1 year out, thus meeting the statutory requirement that's allowed us to hire these officers. So it's open.
Mayor.
It's open for discussion.
Mayor, can Officer Collette come down and introduce himself to us?
Sure.
Please?
He was
I'm
going
not,
to.
I
He was
don't know
going
who
to,
he is.
actually.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I appreciate you having me here. Greg Collette, as you heard, he's covered most of the introduction points, but most of you probably know me. I am a lifelong resident, married to Tamara, of course, have 3 children here. As you said, I served 27 years, Oldham County Police. Always loved my position there. Of course, the city, part of the county.
Can you speak a little louder in there?
I'm sorry.
Just speak
And
up.
so, you know, I'm sure there's some differences in the city operation, but we'll adapt fast. And as the mayor stated, we got good personnel at the police department to help me along with that process, and we'll keep things rolling and serve with pride and honor. And that's always been my motto, so to speak, and be in service to the citizens, business owners, and city council and mayor. I encourage you have any concerns, questions, that's what I'm here for you. More than happy to serve. That's been my main goal in life, and that's really all I know.
Wait, don't go where you at. We'll keep you on hot seat. Greg knows, he understands that we've got good officers here, and he understands he's going to work with who we have here, and we're going to have a good police department, and they're going to enjoy, I'm hopeful, coming to work every day under Greg's leadership. That's all I'm asking is make sure these officers here enjoy their job and protect our community, and that's all you can ask. Through the nighttime hours, I see them come by my house, and that's what people expect. Are we safe? Do we have good police out there looking out for our citizens? And that's what my direction to Greg will be, and hopefully that's what we get accomplished.
Also, Greg, I would like to see you out in the public yourself, down Main Street, visiting with people. I want people to know who you are.
I'd love to do that.
You know, get a good rapport with the people in our city, and I think you will. I don't know if you remember, but I taught you in
Yes, ma'am.
Sunday school.
Certainly do.
So
Yes.
now I'm getting old.
Hopefully I left a good impression.
You did.
But Yes, I look forward to doing that. Of course, the constraints of a modern law enforcement administration, and if somebody's feeling that they're not seeing me, I encourage them to call me. We'll certainly be there, but I do enjoy, I think I may have had the reputation that I do enjoy being out on the street to the strongest degree that I can. Incidents happen. I feel it's part of a chief's duty or any supervisor's duty. If your personnel is working it, you be there with your personnel, the support, and help them through the situation, and make the community known that it's a team effort for the department, and it reflects how the department operates, and it's a reflection of the city.
Greg, I think it was a great accomplishment for the Grange Police Department to get accredited, so I hope we'll continue to keep that going.
Yes.
It was,
Look at it, and
yeah, I think everybody was proud of that, to be 106 of the Kentucky out of all the law enforcement to be accredited, so.
from the past, I know that it's a great and cumbersome effort to do that accreditation, and once you've invested that into the department, it could be a loss.
I appreciate that.
I wanted to say I hear great things about you personally, and I read great things about you professionally. So I look forward to seeing how this department grows. I love this police department as a business owner in this town. Y'all protect me as a homeowner. I've had to call when I had raccoons in my house at 1:30 in the morning on a Friday night, and I was cared for very well. So I want to personally thank also Major Goodfleisch. I think he's done a great job this past month, and I really appreciate that as a council member, as a community member.
I sincerely appreciate your all's time and consideration in this nomination process.
Okay, City Council, you have a City of Grange employment contract here and before you. Pretty much spells out what the agreement of the contract says. Talks about benefits of basically none. He does get some vacation and some days off. His termination, Greg will be compensated at $70,000 annually. And I think that's in line with what chiefs make and what our staff and our different department leaders are making. So you have the contract before you. So anyone else have any questions for Greg or myself or anyone at this time? If no further questions, I'll like to entertain a motion to put in a nomination Greg Collette to be our city police chief for LaGrange for the next year under this contract.
I'll make a motion that we, you need to say?
go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we put Greg Collette in for the next year as our chief of police.
Mayor, I would like to second that motion, please.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Pollard. Thank you, Bill. We have a motion, a second on the table. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, no discussion. All those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Congratulations, Greg.
Thank you all. I appreciate
You're
it.
going to do some good things for us.
Looking forward to it.
You're going to work with our police, and we're going to be good, okay?
Yes,
And
sir.
appreciate you stepping up, and you're a clean man, and that's what we want. And we've got a nice wife back there, too, and those kids.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
Come on up here. Come on up here. They want to meet, they'd like to meet you, too, as well. Greg, where do your children, where do y'all's kids go to school?
My youngest, Allison, goes to Oldham County Middle School, and Connor is a sophomore at Oldham County High School.
Hi, I'm Tamara.
Tamara? Nice to see you.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Appreciate you having
They
me.
live right outside here on North 53, right at the bridge. I don't know if y'all know where they live, but they're right here, right on the edge of the city. And thank you for coming here tonight with your husband, Greg, and I believe he's going to be a good leader for us, and we're going to do fine things here. Thank you all so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Okay, we have the introduction tonight, first reading of ordinance. Who would like to introduce the first reading of the ordinance 1-219, the closing of Sumac Alley?
Mayor, I'll introduce first reading of ordinance 1-219, closing the Sumac Alley.
Okay, the motion been made by Joe. Is there a second to that motion?
Seconded.
Second by Trey Kamer. Any discussion on the motion? Yes, ma'am.
Are they going to close the alley behind Sumac and run all the way back through to the next street, or will they be open to the ones behind the other house?
Stephanie Winther, if you want to, just come on up here just for a moment, please. The question is, and if you would, Elsie, speak into your microphone and say what you wanted to ask.
I would like to know if the alley behind the continuation of Sumac Alley behind the other houses to the next street, will that still be open for those houses?
That will still be open. This is just closing that one block.
Okay. Do the neighbors there object to that?
No, they do not. They've
They
all
do not?
signed their approval.
That's all I need to know. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I have a question, but this probably should wait till the second reading.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. There won't be any discussion on the first reading. I just want to make sure everybody's clear as to where you, make sure you know where Sumac Alley is. Okay.
Right beside the utility commission.
Okay, motion made by Elsie. Is there a second? To accept the first reading of it?
Trey, I made the motion, Trey seconded, Mayor.
Okay, motion made by Joe, second by Trey. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Okay. Okay, we'll have the second reading and a public hearing. Next meeting, Stephanie? When's the next meeting? You got that? March the 4th. We have a public hearing. Okay. All right, next on your agenda tonight is Eden Parkway Extension. Mr. Jim Urban is coming here tonight.
Could I ask a question?
Yes,
Sorry,
sir.
before we move on to the next item. So, and if we're changing things, that's okay. I guess we've done our introduction, but we usually do, or we have done, since I've been on council, the actual first reading of the item that we're doing a first reading on. My understanding is we could do an introduction, though, and that kind of takes the place of that first reading.
Well, I guess I'll have to say something here finally. You can read ordinances in summary form or in, you can read ordinances in summary form or in detail. And after all this, I think what was read in was basically, well, you have to read the title of the ordinance
title.
and a narrative prepared, but it's so short. And we've described it. I will read the actual portion of it if that's okay. Because the intent and the purpose is to explain to everyone the portion that we're going to close. So we're just really going to close the first 200 feet of the road, and it's defined as a portion of Sumac Alley as shown on the plat. Did everybody get a copy of the plat?
It's attached.
Okay. And we also have a legal description. So it's a copy of the plat as shown on the, copy of the alley as shown on the closing plat. Will be closed as a public road of City of LaGrange according to the attached meets and bounds description incorporated by reference. However, there shall be accepted from all the public utilities, rights of ways, and easements of public record or parent which shall continue to run with the land. So that's the first reading of the ordinance related to the closing of a portion of Sumac Alley pursuant to KRS 82405, which is our ordinance number 1 for Series 2019. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Craig Mile.
You're
Okay.
welcome.
Item 13, Eden Parkway Extension. That item was in your all's packet, and Jim Urban's here tonight to try, and anyway, he won't try, he will explain to the council what this Eden Parkway extension is all about.
Great.
Welcome, Jim.
Great, thanks, Mayor and council members, good evening. I'm here tonight to ask you to consider authorizing the mayor to sign this agreement for consulting services, which includes a scope of work. It is with BTM Engineering out of Louisville to do preliminary line and grade for the extension of Eden Parkway in Oldham Reserve. First of all, I haven't been introduced really to some of the council members. I'm the planning director and actually your staff. The planning and development services functions throughout the entire county. And one of the functions that we do is that we help put out requests for proposals or requests for qualifications for certain projects. And we did that with this one back at the latter part of last year. We put out a request for qualifications, and we had firms that submitted their qualifications. We scored their qualifications. We had a committee made up of several members, including Mayor Davenport. I think we had 6 people altogether that scored the written proposals, and then we interviewed each of the firms. And in that interview, we were giving them a very specific set of information that we wanted them to then give us a proposal for their services in terms of their fees. So this particular consultant, BTM, was selected by that committee, and you can see in item number 4, their proposal is for $44,768. Since this is in relation to Oldham Reserve, which is a joint project between the City of LaGrange and Oldham County Fiscal Court, we anticipate that we would split those fees in half. So tomorrow at the Fiscal Court meeting, this is an agenda item asking Fiscal Court to allow Judge Vogel to sign this contract along with the mayor. And then we're ready to get going. So the extension of Eden Parkway is an existing road. It's the road that leads basically up to where Rawlings is in Oldham Reserve. And it dead ends not quite at the high point in Oldham Reserve. And we're going to extend that all the way through to LaGrange Parkway, which was just opened last year. And that will allow better circulation within the park, and it'll be another good piece of infrastructure that we add to the business park to attract additional mixed uses in that park. So with that, Mayor, unless you have any other questions about the contract or about Oldham Reserve that I might be able to answer, I'm here to again ask the council to give you authorization to sign this contract.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Does the council fully understand what piece of road we're talking about in Oldham Reserve? So you're very familiar with that, right?
Yes, but I have a different question. Is it $44,000 for this county and for the city? It's an $88,000 project, right?
No, it's a $44,000 total, so it'll be split in half. It'll be $22,000.
Okay, and what do we get for the money?
Preliminary line and grade for the roadway. So they're doing, if you look in the scope of work, which is attached to the agreement, there's a list of what the, not only the project description, but the services that they're providing. They're going to do initially a lot of surveying because we don't have the road actually laid out where it's going to go. They'll give us a preliminary design, and they'll give us preliminary cost estimates.
For the road.
So that then we'll understand how much the road is going to cost.
Right.
Once we finish that, we can extend this contract to actually do the construction documents, and then we can put it out for bid and then build the road. But we don't even know how much the road is going to cost at this point.
And will this PTM, will they be the ones who will do the construction also?
No, they're consulting engineers.
Just a consulting firm, right? Okay, just for the survey and the, okay, plans.
Jim, I was under the impression, because I've been in these meetings, but I was thinking that the cost of engineering for the road would be number of percent, 10%, 20%. I thought that's what Greg Oakley said. So are you saying tonight that $44,000 total money will get the road ready to go to bid or not?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay.
One of Councilwoman Carter's questions was, what do we get for that? And what we get is preliminary line and grade. And so we know where the road is going to be, the center line will be staked out, and then we'll have preliminary cost. Then we would have to go to construction plans. So there will be additional engineering services costs for the construction plans.
So probably more than likely, if it was $1 million and 10%, that'd be $100,000 engineering fees to think about designing, laying out the road itself. So should we expect another at least $44,000 cost down the road that will be split again with the city and the county, more or less, or do you not know that?
Well, Mayor, I'd hate to put out a number because I'm not really sure what the cost is going to be. That's why we're doing it in 2 steps, so that we know what the cost will end up being. I would anticipate that the construction plans are typically, they might be close again to what this contract is. But that will then be what we can bid the project with.
So the council understands that, correct? This will not be the final need for funding to get this road actually built. There will be this one more time. Does everyone agree with that? Understand that? Okay.
And then we'll get the cost on the road to be done.
Right.
Right. Just
Okay.
wanted to make sure where we're spending our money.
That's part of trying to continue the effort, the infrastructure of Oldham Reserve. This is a critical link where the actual Eden Parkway, as you travel that pathway up past Rollins, it just sort of dead ends and it becomes, looks like someone went out of business. So it's there, so this will be a continuation of that eventually. I think there'll be maybe a roundabout at the juncture point, won't there, Mr. Urban?
At the top of the hill where Peak Road would eventually bisect this property at the top of the hill.
But it will allow the Rollins people, number one, to come out of Rollins Corporation and hang immediate left and head straight to the LaGrange Parkway and come around that way as we continue to build the ramps on the bridge and stuff like that. So it's all an effort to try to create infrastructure within inside the park itself.
It will also open up additional land for sale as
Right.
well, yes.
Okay? So we have the agreement between ourselves and Mr. Urban. He will go to physical court tomorrow to present the same agreement to the county. So who would like to introduce or make a motion to approve the agreement that's before you tonight? Anyone?
Just one question, Mayor. Where does developers come in on this, HOH? Where will this be recouped from land sales of all we putting in, or?
I can only say, I think so, yes. That's
That's
part
what
of
I'm
the
thinking. I
long-range
just want to make it,
plan.
I mean, a lot of
with land
people,
sales.
maybe some of the council members don't realize that, but it's always been my understanding, so that's the reason I wanted to mention it, so. About, everything that we put into this when the land sales will recoup the money that we're investing.
It's on a spreadsheet and it'll be accounted for.
Yes, I just want to bring it on record, so.
Appreciate that, Mayor. That is right in how that eventually works, but if we add infrastructure to the park, we will then be owed the money from land sales, or so we get our money quickly and reimbursed to us. I think that's what he was asking.
Yeah.
Or stating. Okay, any further questions on that?
I do. I have a question. So I guess with this parkway, would it start right at the dead end, the current dead end, or would it?
Yes.
It would.
Yeah, it starts there and goes all the way to LaGrange Parkway, and there's already a curb cut in LaGrange Parkway to accept the road coming in there.
Okay. And then just one other question, and I realized you said that part of this agreement is for them to provide the design. Is the goal to still have the same, I guess, lane footprint that is existing?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure that we're going to have sidewalks necessarily that curve like they do because of the way that the drainage is set up. We might have a different drainage system as opposed to like the flumes that allow the road to drain. They might be catch basins and pipes instead, but it will generally look like the existing LaGrange Parkway. Now Eden Parkway. The real issue though is like in the town center, what do we do? Where the mayor was talking about a roundabout, and how do we make that transition to a roundabout where there's going to be mixed uses right around the roadway? So we'll have to figure that out as we go through this design.
Okay. Thank you.
I would like to ask the audience why Jim Urban's talking here. Can he be heard by you all? Some say yes, some say no. So.
I can sort of hear, but I can't hear Trey at all.
The reason I asked that question is I don't know about this podium, how we can improve the folks who come there to speak, how the audience can hear them, and how we can hear them all at the same time equally. So it's a.
From here, I can hear myself and the speakers occasionally. Yeah, but it's the fans that are blowing. We always have this issue in this room. It's the fans that are circulating the air that make it difficult to hear.
Okay, any further questions for Mr. Urban? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we go ahead and approve this contract to continue the infrastructure, this being a road in Oldham Reserve, to try to, once again, connect a major thoroughfare and open up more land for eventual sales we anticipate.
Mm-hmm.
So who would like to make the motion?
You need a motion for you to approve, for you to sign the contract. Is that what you need, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'll make the motion for the mayor to approve, have the authority to sign the contract.
Seconded.
And I'll second that motion.
Motion been made by Joe Davenport, second by Trey Kamer. Any further discussion on the motion?
I second the motion.
We got a second. We already have a second.
Oh, okay, very
Yes,
good.
ma'am. Thank you. So we have a first and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you, Mr. Urban.
Damn system needs to be
Appreciate it.
ripped
Thank you,
out and
Jim.
replaced.
Anyone want to take a break? I don't know if anyone ever wants to take a break at a city council meeting or not, but as long as you're all okay, I'm okay. Heather, I want you to pass out tonight, as I've told the council, next on your agenda is committee assignments. And I will tell you, the council, that I could do every bit of this work through the committee assignments, I guess, but I want the council themselves to feel involved, to be a part of the policy of the city, and I've tried my best to place each of you all on at least 3 committees. I've been told somewhat that committees are not useful. People don't like to attend them, won't attend them, but I feel differently about this city council. I feel like this council is been put in these places to do good things for our city, and hopefully through this committee assignment plan, they will initiate ideas and projects and things that make things happen in our city that possibly won't happen unless we've got the desire to make it happen. The very first committee is roads, public safety, police, and environmental. And I'm going to ask Joe Davenport to chair that committee with Andrea and also Debbie Pollard. In my notes, when we're talking about roads, public safety, we can talk about street improvements, curb improvements, gutter improvements, sidewalks, be dealing with police issues in that committee, public safety, and things of that type. I will not have what we used to know as an ordinance committee. Any topic that needs to be brought forward concerning these topics will come through this committee for eventual introduction to the city council. That way, these committees are familiar from month to month, week to week, exactly what's going on within this sector of public involvement. So if the police need something, Corey Rusnick needs something, or introduce of an ordinance to close a street, add curb and gutter, you name it, I will work with the committees, each of these committees, to try to understand what the issues are at the moment. Does everyone sort of understand what I'm up to? That way you can become involved and be a part of our effort to keep on making these improvements. I have a committee named Downtown Economic Development and Investment, to be chaired by Mary Bolton, Leslie Wright, and Bill Lamline. I would like to see the investment in our downtown improve week to week, month to month, year to year, where even the property values, the investment itself, expanding our business district, things like that. in my letter to you on your front page, I want us sort of thinking outside the box somewhat. Let's come up with some unique ideas on how we can create investment and bring more excitement to our downtown. And this committee, I want to see if you can initiate some of those things. I think it'd be fun and exciting if you come with some ideas. Buildings, budget, finance, and utilities. That's an important committee, as all of them are. But I want Trey Kamer to chair that committee, along with Bill Lamline and Elsie Carter. There's a lot of things we need to be looking at in terms of our buildings and our facilities. Our budget, we're going to need to start preparing and working on as we move forward here, the financial side of it, and then anything that involves utilities, such as the Utility Commission. If the Utility Commission wants to bring an ordinance to us, I would like for it to be introduced and brought to this committee, and then they will study it and bring it forward as they see the need to be done. The next committee is Youth Development and Outreach. I've heard some council folks talk about our youth and what do we need to be doing to involve them. I have Andrea chairing that committee along with Leslie Wright and Debbie Pollard. When we're talking about youth in our city, what's keeping them involved? What are they doing? I would like to maybe someday have movies on the courthouse lawn where we blow up a big movie screen and we have something for the kids to come enjoy. Have a movie in our gymnasium. Can we do something in our gymnasium? Put a big screen in there and we have movie night on Friday sometime. I'd like for this committee to work within our school, LaGrange Elementary, work with programs there. I think we have some money in the budget for LaGrange Elementary. And anything we can do to involve young folks and you all can get them more involved within the community, I'd like to have them sitting here in this city council meeting because someday they need to be city council folks. You know, we're not going to be here forever. We need to get maybe the youth involved. Could that committee, Andrea, can you chair that one for me, please?
I can chair one of the two. I'm committed to that. So.
What do you mean, one of the two?
Well, you've got me chairing neighborhood festivals too.
Well,
So.
well, you can.
How much time commitment?
Well, you can give that to Leslie right then. But anyway,
Leslie.
well, if you don't want it, I mean, we can switch up if you don't have time for two. But that's where I have you at the moment, and we can work on it. Personnel, insurance, boards, and commissions. Trey Kamer, the chair, Joe Davenport, and Debbie Pollard. There's a lot of personnel matters that need to be gotten into in depth. Personnel issues, we went to the Kentucky League of Cities meeting, a lot of us did a few weeks ago, and heard a lot about policy, about personnel matters, about comp time. It's just huge of what we need to have in our books and regulations, and that committee there will start taking those issues up and then involving our city, our directors. They've probably got issues right now that they need to bring forward, whether it's a job description or whatever it is. We need to keep working towards getting those things where they need to be. Neighborhood festivals, Andrea, chair that, Mary Bolton, Leslie Wright. I would like to get our neighborhoods involved. I mean, wouldn't it be cool to pick out a neighborhood and our police chief comes along, our assistant chief, and our code enforcement director, and our works department director, and a few city council people, and a historic district commission member, and go right into the neighborhoods and have some town look at the issues, look at the alleys, look at the culverts, just look at the sidewalks. You know, let's try to get into the neighborhoods through this committee here. And I wouldn't mind if you had a beautification award. I wouldn't mind if you had a contest. I wouldn't mind if you all organized a neighborhood yard sale. You know, let's try to get people out and talking and building pride within our neighborhoods. You know, a lot of folks don't even know who their neighbors are. But maybe through this neighborhood festival idea, it'd be so cool that some Saturday morning we say our police is going to be in there and our code enforcement, and we're just trying to meet people and see perhaps what would make our neighborhoods better. I know we're city of LaGrange, we're not the city of Louisville, but I still think it can be done here.
We're so much
You know.
better than they are, we're ahead of them.
Well, I know, but we can sit back and do nothing, or we can try to take interest in these committees and get excited and go do something. I had economic development for downtown, but I am not going to forget about economic development north, south, east, and west. When I mean that, we've got opportunity on the south side of town, outside the downtown district. We got opportunity on the north side. We got opportunity on the east side and on the west side. This committee right here, made up of Bill Lamline chairing it, Leslie Wright and Elsie Carter. We've got issues with our businesses. Stephanie Winther, you know, we know about the issues they bring forward on taxation, on issues such as inventory. You know, what does it take in terms of development, in terms of roads, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of zoning? What's it take for our businesses outside of downtown? We cannot forget, you hear a lot about downtown LaGrange, but we're more than that. We got to take care of the outer business as well, and push those forward. Parks and Recreation, got Joe Davenport chairing that. We have our chair, Mr. Hazelton here tonight, Elsie Carter and Debbie Pollard. I will say that I know Trey Kamer is very involved in that committee, and he may wish to stay. I didn't intentionally not put him on there, but I've got him on some many other things that he's only got so many nights, you know. So if Trey, if you want to stay with Parks, we can work on that. If you say, you know, I need you in these other chairs, these other committees, and you've only got so much time to give. I understand that. But in our Parks and Recreation, I want you to work for the Parks Board, activities for families. Let's do something at our lakes. Let's do something at our park. Let's do something at our golf course. Can we initiate something that, through this committee, that the citizens of LaGrange have a picnic at our golf course? I want our golf course involved because we own that. Right. We need to have the city out there having a putt-putt contest. Right, Blake? Mr. Hayes? Okay, so this Parks Committee, we do have a Parks Board, but, you know, we've got gymnasiums. We could have a three-on-three street ball showdown. Y'all remember those things back in the day? You had 3-on-3 street ball showdowns where the kids got a team of 3, and you had a contest on 2nd Street. You had 6 basketball goals. Let's do something to initiate a street ball showdown through our parks in your all's excitement. All right? Yes, ma'am.
I think that since you've got Trey on Parks and Recreation, why don't you jump Debbie up to neighborhood festivals, because she's all about that. She has been for a long time.
Once I get through this tonight, we can switch any way you want to, okay?
That's just a
This
suggestion.
is just a thought, trying to get everybody involved. And I even went, I even went as far as we will have these meetings on 45-minute intervals on the second Monday of the month, the second Tuesday, and the second Wednesday. These first 3 committees, one meet at 5 o'clock, one meet at 6:30, and one meet at 5 o'clock to 5:45, from 5:45 to 6:30. These meetings don't have to last that long, but there are issues that we got to get on the table, whether it's personnel, whether it's economic development. We've got to get them into committee form and deal with them. The last committee was our Historical District Guidelines Committee. That's already chaired by Mary Bolton and Bill Lamline and Andrea. They're already working. I think Mary's going to have a report on that tonight. Correct?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. So that's the committee structure, folks. If there's a way that we can sort of, there's some of these committees I need to call into committee right away, because I got some issues that I'd like to get your all's involvement and see perhaps how we could move these issues forward. So depending on what the need is, Stephanie knows it, Heather knows it. Where's Becca? Is Becca here tonight? She left. And then our people who work for us know what I'm talking about. So we'll push some of these issues into these committees and see perhaps if we can get those moving forward, whether it's an ordinance or whatever it may be, a code enforcement issue. They're out there, and certain boards will deal with this. Any questions or comments at this time? Otherwise, my throat's about gone. My throat is worn out. But it's going to be fun. Hopefully you all see this as I do and try to, wouldn't it be cool to just make our downtown, our investment, every building is filled up, there's no vacancies, and we just keep pushing like that. That's what I'd like to see is happen. So otherwise, I don't need a motion on this, but if anyone has an issue with it, I'd be more than glad to listen to it.
When do you expect these committees to start?
In the morning.
In the morning? Tomorrow morning? Okay.
Excuse me? Probably, Trey, depending on your schedule, they can start next week, actually. I'm going to think about what we've got to get to first. But next Wednesday, City Council is City Days in Frankfurt, okay? We can go to Frankfurt. It's City Days. We meet all the legislature. I have a meeting already set up with Senator Harris at 10:30 on Wednesday morning to go to his office there in his executive legislative chamber. So anybody that wants to go to Frankfurt next Tuesday, then we'll finish up that night, I think, at the Convention Center with the Kentucky League of Cities and just meeting all the legislators and stuff like that, and that will be next Wednesday. We heard that at the KLC meeting, didn't we, everyone? So that will be Wednesday. But Trey, for your sake, I'll give you a heads up on if I need you to be the chair and call your meeting into session, okay?
Sounds fair.
I will say on these committees, you know, it won't be unheard of a chairman of the building committee, a chairman of finance, and chairman of some other committee sort of getting their heads together on, because if you're talking about doing something building-wise, you got to make sure finance understands it. So if the money's not there, then you've got to be talking among the chairs as to what we're going to be pushing, and is the money be available, or what is the issue? So there's going to be a lot of interaction between the chairmen themselves, chair ladies, chairmen. So y'all ready to do that? Leslie, you ready? Okay, well, that's the committee makeup, and hopefully I've got you where you think you would have some interest. If I've tried really hard I've really thought about this and tried to see perhaps if I get the right people in the right place with the right excitement, everything will be fine. Okay, so that's those committees for tonight. Let's see, where are we? Okay, standing committee report. Tonight, as always, our committees, I'm going to expect them, the chairperson, to try to report to the full city council of what they have going on. So tonight, I've been talking to Mary Bolton. She's the chairperson of our Historic District Guidelines Committee. I'm not going to tell you what they're up to, because that's their direction. And so, Mary, at this time, would you like to give your committee report?
Sure. So we were briefly meeting with the commission, the Historic Commission, to set up a time to get with them at the preliminary stages to review the historic guidelines. So our first official meeting will be on Tuesday, February 12th at 6:30 before the Historic Commission meeting. So our goal is to work with the commission to do a first review of the historic guidelines. In this first meeting, we'll be going over the first 3 sections just to look at additional modifications and ways that we can improve the guidelines, specifically for homeowners to interpret, and to get the commission's feedback of what they've seen over the years, particularly what they have been able to approve and any hindrances that they can foresee that might come up as we're trying to modify these guidelines to help homeowners in the historic district. After we go over the historic district, we do plan on having a public forum for feedback, and we will also be asking all of the council members to be reviewing the historic guidelines and the ordinances, because we also want your written feedback. So at the next meeting, I'll be passing out a copy of the most up-to-date guidelines and ordinances so that you can have time to review and provide any feedback and recommendations you may have.
March.
Okay,
Wait a second, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Too
one
late.
second.
did you all hear what Mary had to say?
Yeah.
Okay, anyone have any comments on what she said?
Who's, I think I saw somewhere, would you refresh my memory, who's chairman of the Historic District Commission now?
Mary?
Right.
The Guidelines Committee.
Oh, the commission?
They're studying.
No, I'm asking about the commission, Historic District Commission itself,
Oh.
with these replacement. Who's
It's
the chairman?
co-chaired.
Barbara Manley's daughter,
Julie.
Julie Heckman.
Julie took chairman?
Yes.
At this time, she is the temporary chairperson.
Thank you.
I had a question. So the meeting on the 12th, is that in their room?
Yes, so it'll be in City Hall on the second floor, the same room as the Historic Commission.
And the public forum, is that going to be a separate meeting?
That'll be a separate meeting down the road. I
Okay.
just kind of wanted to give
The historic district.
people a heads up who are interested in the historic guidelines, to know that, you know, you will get a voice in it, and you will be able to see what goes into it prior to council voting on anything.
I think it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Mary, what are you all, as a committee, commission, jointly together, what is your all's direction or directive for your next meeting to discuss? Was it 3 chapters?
The first 3 sections.
First
So
3
mhm,
sections.
there's 7 sections and then an appendix of the guidelines, of the historic district guidelines. And our goal is to basically go over the first half of the guidelines. So we want to try to expedite this so that we can kind of get it before council as quickly as we can, but while being thorough and making sure that we've had time to go through and make our own recommendations as a first round.
Okay, I think the city council received both packets of the guidelines and the ordinance, right, in your packets of the historical district as it is today. I want you to try to read and be familiar with those, because at some point in time, what they're doing is going to be put on this table as to what their efforts are and to try to look at this subject matter, okay? So make sure you're familiarizing
Yeah.
yourself with what even they're talking about along the way. Yes, ma'am.
The goal, if it's conducive to the council, is to have your feedback, written feedback for us by the April meeting. So that gives a couple months that hopefully you guys can review the guidelines and the ordinances, and just any ideas that you have. Like I said, a personal goal, I think, for the guidelines would be how to make these the best possible guidance for our historic homeowners. And, you know, so try to, I guess, think of that when you're reviewing it. So I know some of you do live in the historic district, and if you don't, just sort of think, if you were in that position, you know, what would you want to see?
Well, they put 3 stop orders. They fined me $4,000.
Okay, if there's no further, thank you, Mary, very much, and I appreciate the fact that as a committee chair, you've brought that to the full council, and now they're familiar with possibly what you all are doing. So that's very important. Okay. We as a city council, the ordinance calls for our city council to have an appointment to the Grange Utility Commission Board. This is an appointment that the mayor, I guess, recommends and appoints. And as I appoint this person has to certainly sit there and serve the Utility Commission as what the Utility Commission goals and objectives are. This person has to also sit at the City Council to meet what they think are the concerns of the citizens. So it's a 2-pronged approach where you're sitting at a board trying to make sure that you're supporting the board's goals and directions and what they need as a board, but at the same time, keeping the citizens in mind. This person who I'm going to nominate and appoint, they understand that this is important, that they can serve both roles. And in the past, there's no reason that I see that this member from this council should sit at either board and abstain from voting. They need to be voting. If they don't think what's before the city, the Grange Utility Commission, and they don't think it's good policy, then they need to vote no. If they think it's good, even on a pay raise, they got to make a decision and not let this stand in the way of that decision. And then when they get here, they have to certainly keep that in mind as well. So I would like to appoint Elsie Carter to the Grange Utility Commission. I feel like Elsie can go there. I think Elsie will speak to what she thinks needs to be spoken about. And I want Elsie to go up there, and one thing I'm giving her, not an order, but a directive, is to keep this city council informed of all utility business through a report to the council of what's going on each month with the LaGrange Utility Commission. And I feel like you will go there and you will have the best citizens' concerns in mind, as well as Utility Commission. I know there was just an ordinance passed recently about landlords and tenants and fees and stuff like that. And I talked to Elsie about this, and she couldn't imagine what it was, and probably didn't even like it. But after she went to the Utility Commission and talked to Mr. Chisholm about it, she fully understood the intent and the reasoning for it.
And joined it.
And bought into it. So I think that's what we have to have. Don't just jump to conclusions that something's not good, but make sure you're fully informed of what you're about to decide on. So with that being said, Elsie, I ask that you do a good job for the commission, as well as this council, as well as the citizens, to perform that task like we all expect you should do.
With input from the city council, I would do that. If we have people who feel like there's things that need to be done, I don't want to be the only one that stands. I want them to tell me and let's get it straightened out.
Well, that's your voice to the commission.
Right,
If you
and through
hear
the city council too.
if you hear of something that needs to be brought to the commission and it's a concern to any city council member based on a citizen issue, then that's what you're to go there and do. Is that fair?
I was in 4 inches of sludge about 10 days ago from somebody who called me that said they had a problem with their things.
Speak in your microphone,
Oh,
please, so all
I'm
the
sorry.
audience can hear you. You got it turned on?
About 10 days ago, I was in somebody's yard at 8:30 at night on a Saturday night, and there was sewage running down their yard 4 inches deep, and I was appalled. Well, the next morning, I went back to check on them, and the utility commission already had somebody there putting a new pump in. I mean, it was like, I don't know, magic, but it was the right thing to do, and they did it. And I was impressed, I really was, because I've never seen that before for anybody to do that. But it was done on Sunday morning for that citizen, which was great. I mean, they really, I would have appreciated it.
Okay, so that's my nominee. Do I have a motion to approve Elsie Carter going there and doing a great job for our city council and our commission at this point?
did too.
Anybody like to make the motion? A motion made by Andrea to support the nominee. Is there a second? Second by Leslie. Thank you, Leslie. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you, Elsie.
Thank you, I'm scared
Yes,
now. I'm scared I won't do as good a job as I should.
Okay, item 17, Oldham Reserve bond payment discussion. I think this council and everyone has heard that there is a payment to be made to reduce the bond debt. And myself and Stephanie have been working with Dwight Salisbury, with Ross Sinclair. We will be making a bond payment to reduce the Oldham Reserve debt on or about February the 12th, we will wire to a bank that Dwight Salisbury directs us to wire to. We will wire them $1,001,069.44. The present outstanding debt on ODA is $6,895,000, and we will reduce that debt down to $1,001,069.49 when we make that payment on February the 12th. Okay?
We owe them $6 million, and we're gonna pay them $1 million?
We're gonna pay them $1 million, yes.
The debt'll be $5 million some odd, right? I mean, the debt that's gonna still be there.
It'll reduce the debt by $1 million, whatever,
Right.
what the payment is.
So the remaining debt will be $5 million some odd, right?
I've got $5,893,000.
Okay.
$5,893,930.56.
Yeah.
And then, just a day or two ago, we made another February 1st payment of $100,108.34. So basically, in a number of days, we're gonna be making almost $1,100,000 reduction of debt. What that's gonna do, it's gonna reduce our interest payment in the months ahead by about $2,500 a month. So when we put our budget together for 19 and 20, we will have, I think, a monthly payment about $97,000 and change. Okay? So it's reducing that debt. As far as the term of the debt will go approximately out to 24, but with these continual payments, there will be a earlier pay date, we hope, by making these kind of $1 million deals as we get our hands on the money to do it.
Will we be penalized for the early pay date?
No,
Okay.
no. Actually, we could pay this whole debt off right now with no penalty if we had the money,
Wouldn't that be great?
okay?
Yeah.
There's no penalty to pay this debt off its entirety.
Okay, good. Well, that's why I wanted, when you said the first $1,169,000, I was thinking, I thought we said 200 and something. Then I see what you did.
Actually, when we pay the 100,000, we'll be down to $5,793,822.22. Okay?
5 million what?
792.
$5,793,822.22.
Okay.
So we're knocking it down, and
Thank you.
I want to give credit to Mr. Lamline, who saved the city from going bankrupt years ago. And we hear a lot about the compensation tax, but it's able to do things that, had we not had it, the city would have been in deep trouble, I would have suggested. So, you're welcome.
Yes.
Is that gonna change the date that it matures, Mayor?
It will change it somewhat a little sooner at this point, but it's not going to have that big effect on it just yet, okay? I mean, you would think $1 million at a clip, but it's paid out to 24, so with our ability, we could probably pay, we might be able to pay another $1 million this time next year, possibly.
Okay.
You know, if we knock it down $1 million a year, that's plus our $97,000 a month payments, we're doing something. Okay? So we're in good shape. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that to your attention, and that's where we are in the bond payment. I know there's been people in the public who said, when are we making this bond payment? And it was due to be made in the month of February, so we'll be wiring out on February 12th. Item 18, property purchase 309 West Main Street. I don't know what else there is to say about that. I think you've heard it. We have a deed to it, and the only thing I would say would be, once we get in these committees, in our building and buildings, budget, finance, and utility committee, chaired by Trey Kamer, Bill Limline, Elsie Carter, we're gonna need to decide in that particular committee, what do we need to do with this house? You know, at the stage that it's in.
Give the wood to the Amish and let them tear it down
So,
free.
that's one issue that we'll have to deal with there.
Right? Give the building
Yes,
to the
sir,
Amish,
Mr.
the building
Craigmile.
Amish, and they'll come tear it
I
down
just
free.
wanted to point out that the land that we got has some liens on it still.
Doesn't
We
it?
got it by a quick claim, so we have to pay some county taxes. And there's some small liens that are still on it, but we have it. We have the quick claim deed to it. So there's probably, I don't know, 10,000 or so of liens that are on it altogether.
Did y'all hear that?
Nope.
Excuse me? There was a $1,900 county lien. There was a $22,000 plus city lien for penalties and things that Stephanie Winther had to do at that house to clean it up. We knew that going in, the city council knew that going in, and so with the county, but as far as your issue, Beach, you said some of them were filed after a date that.
Yeah, with a foreclosure sale, you get clean title, generally is the law. But because this case drew out for so long, from the time that it was foreclosed to the time that the deed was actually prepared and signed, from the first person that bought it for $100 to the next person that's bought it for a couple of thousand, and the next person bought it for $8,000, and we bought it for $35,000. The building sat there in a state of disrepair, and the city cleaned it up to the tune of, what, $25,000. And so that added to the bargaining position that John had in purchasing the land. So, and then there's also some additional liens have been or taxes have accrued and not been paid since the new owners have had, several owners have had it. And it was a bear just chasing down who had it. And it just so happened that we caught them at the time right between when tax lien buyer number 1 sold it to tax lien buyer number 2 about a month after that happened. And so that was part of the leverage that we had in getting them to take such a low price. So, but we just need to clean up that. But it's not like we're ever going to sell this property, you know. So it's not like the liens encumber us from having to make it marketable, you know. So.
I would like to ask the city council to go ahead and approve the fact that we did give the $35,000 for the property as we discussed, and, you know, to go purchase the property. And I felt like during the negotiations, we were in a bidding contest with other folks in this city who wanted it. When I called for an appraisal and also looked at the city records to see exactly what this property was assessed at, was $92,000, and that's the reason, not knowing who we could be bidding against, that's the reason, with your all's permission, I went ahead and got it done at $35,000 each. So I'd like to have a motion to approve this purchase of 309 West Main for $35,000. Anyone want to make it?
I'll make a motion.
Motion made by Elsie Carter. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mary Bolton. Any further discussion on the motion to have purchased this property for $35,000? If not, all those in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Thank you all. Okay, on item 19, we added that at the beginning of the meeting. This comes from the Department of Local Government under the Consumer Price Index. Legislative folks, county judges, probably county mayors, magistrates, they are entitled to take the percentage of increase for the 12-month period preceding, and it's called the Consumer Price Index increase. I doubt that you all want to do it, but I want to give this to you because if I didn't, you might ask, how come we never heard about that? It's 1.9%. If any of this city council would like to make a motion to approve their pay by 1.9%, then I'd ask you right now to do it. If you chose not to do it, then I would understand that as well. So would you just want to pass on this increment increase that you're actually entitled to? Yes or no?
Not until they make it bigger.
Excuse me?
Not until they make it bigger.
Okay. Mayor?
I do have a question. Did the city council get a raise, cost of living raise last year?
No,
Doubt it.
What about the year before that?
I don't know.
no.
What about
No,
the
we
year
haven't got
before
one.
that?
No.
What about the year
No.
before that?
No.
So if you add all those up, what's the percentage?
Well, you'd be 7 or 8%, 10% higher.
Yeah. So maybe we need to consider that.
Well, this is your opportunity. 1.9%, you can do it, and you're allowed to do it. Yes, your salary is set preceding this year you're in, but you're entitled to vote yourself at 1.9. I think it'd be $9.50.
If you're going to get criticized for it, you know that.
Mr. Mayor, I think it would be
I've learned.
prudent to find out from, I guess, from the League of Cities, if we could add those together and.
No, you can't do that.
You
can't go
cannot do
back
that.
You can't go back and get them. That's sort of like House Bill 44, where you can only take so much and you don't take your allowable increase in property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go back and grab it because you didn't, but that's what the argument is. Had you done it, what would your tax rate be? So
Okay.
you're in the same situation here. Had
Thank you.
these city councils done this years ago, they might be making $50, $75 more than they're making today.
Well, I'm going to pass on that 1.9.
Okay. So there's no motion to do anything on the cost of living, correct? If there's not, we'll leave it
Good try,
alone.
Bill.
Okay, we've been told that item 19 is to be called unfinished business. Anyone want to bring up what you call unfinished business? We used to call it old business, but we learned that League of Cities is to be called unfinished business.
Maybe this would be unfinished or new or old or whatever, but I just found out this evening that the closed-circuit cameras in the two parks are not operating. And I don't understand that. The city spent a lot of money on that, and they did cut the delinquency and the problems that we were having in the park. And now I understand they're not being monitored because they're not working.
Which ones are not working?
I don't know. We're going to find out, aren't we? Thank you, Stephanie.
Aha.
We have 3 cameras set up in Walsh Park and 3 cameras set up in Wilburn Park, and none of them are currently being monitored.
I hear you.
I believe it's $500 a month fee, a monitoring fee, $500 a month for us to use the airwaves or whatever it is to monitor those. And the decision was made last year to no longer fund that. The cameras are still in place. If it's something that everybody would like to revisit at a later time, they are still there, but they are not being monitored. They're not being recorded.
Which ones are you talking about? Which park?
Walsh Park and Wilborn Park.
And Wilbur. They were just discussing problems down there.
Yes.
Ansel.
I'm not sure, I
Right, you don't know about this.
don't know.
Ansel, we don't need them to monitor.
Chairman or Parks Board's here. I don't know how or when the funding was cut to dismantle the operation or usage of the cameras. I do not know. Does anyone else here know that?
I don't know if Blake would know. I would think it was probably September, October-ish, but I don't know for sure.
Stephanie, is it still being paid?
Joe?
Joe, do you remember? Was it September, October?
I think it's too much anyway.
I don't remember the
I don't
exact
remember
date.
either.
It was actually coming out of the police department budget? And
Yes.
the chief said that he thought it should be shared or whatever, and I don't think there was never an agreement made, so I said, well, if we can't agree, we'll just shut them off.
That's
So I
what we
guess
did.
it was probably my decision. And so, I mean, I'm sure, we spent a lot of money. I guess, I don't know how many thousand, Bill, you probably know, it was in your
It was
administration.
paid for by a grant, I believe.
Was it? Yeah.
But it's still a lot of money, and it's a safety issue if nothing else. And we have caught people vandalizing with those cameras, so.
I don't know. Did you say it's $500 a month?
I believe it was $500 a month, yes. That was for all of them, not individually, but for all of the cameras, it was $500.
Is that the only company that we go with, or can that be looked at to negotiate pricing on that, or how do we do that? Go ahead, Dr. Ashley.
My knowledge is that that's your internet fee. We had a bill appear on the park board financials one month for $800 for internet fees through Verizon. And we questioned it because we had never paid any fees before to Verizon or anybody else. And we're basically told that was for the cameras and that the police had been picking that up because they were monitoring it and thought that the park board needed to pay that expense. And I think that's where you came in when I came to you and said, you know.
Actually, the police department never monitored it. It was monitored by code enforcement, basically, and it never was really set and monitored. It was only if an incident happened, and then we'd go back and
Look and see
try
who
to
it was.
redo the tape. I mean, for somebody to just sit and monitor that,
That's stupid.
it's, you know, Stephanie, you know more about, I mean, the cameras, I actually had the cameras on my phone.
Right.
But the thing was, you had to be careful with, when you use those, if you didn't shut them off. I mean,
If you didn't shut 'em
my
off, it
understanding,
was
the fees
using-
kept going.
Right. It was
So you
using
have
your
to be.
data- your data from your data plan, so it would.
Yeah,
add up
you're,
more
you,
fees.
if you don't shut that down, then you're using data, and then it turns over and then it starts charging more.
Yes.
Was my understanding. So, it's something that needs to be really looked at, and actually, my concern would be, who is gonna monitor it? If we spend the money for it? And, I mean, who's gonna be responsible for that? And who's gonna have access to the cameras? It's something that really needs to be looked at, because it did create a problem, you know, so I don't know.
Well, at this time, I understand what you're saying, Mayor and Stephanie, but Mr. Hazelton, you're the Parks Board Chair. Would you look into this situation and
I'll
see?
have to go back and, I'm sorry.
Go
I'll have to
ahead.
go back and find out from Mayor Lamline what the arrangements were, because we weren't involved with that at all. That was a police administration issue. We did not monitor. We did not have access. My thought, based on experience in the school district, is those cameras should be motion activated. They're not running all the time.
And that's correct. They are motion activated.
And
Yes.
then the other thing I understood was that there was a monitor at the police station that was on, so that whoever was there, clerk or whatever was there, would see anything going on and dispatch an officer from the police station if that was necessary. The mayor's right in the sense that we had several incidents early on that led us to some less than outstanding citizens vandalizing restrooms, etc. But over a period of time, we didn't see those kinds of results, probably because people recognized there were cameras there and thought they didn't want to be on them. I do think it'd be advantageous to have the cameras, but the concern would be with a $35,000 budget for the park board, we can't afford $800 a month to pay for Verizon
Put the cameras
bills.
in that are motion activated, and then if some have an incident, go back and look at them. We can do that ourselves.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, that's what you would do at home.
I mean, I'll be glad to look into it. I thought the mayor was very proactive in saying, we've had these issues at our parks.
Yeah.
We'll do it. The equipment, I thought, and appears to be high-quality equipment, and it's appropriately placed. The people who put it in, I think, knew what they were doing and weren't selling something that they were just trying to get rid of. But I do think that it's an advantage to have it, especially with some of the incidents we've had. The area that we have the most problems with is the Glen. And I think it'd be virtually impossible to have cameras at the Glen because of the amount of vegetation, et cetera, you have there. We have issues, you're not seeing it, it's off the trails. But we'll be glad to look into the camera issue and come back with some recommendation.
Okay, sounds good.
Regardless of being motion activated or whatever, there's still gonna be a monthly fee, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
But you don't know what it is right now.
Well, it was $500 a month, but what would happen is if you were watching it or looking for something, anytime you're using the data, if you go over a certain amount, then it would start costing more, which is probably where the $800
See,
came from.
that's what needs to be regulated is the data, whatever whoever's got access, because I think that's what was happening. I mean, I don't know how it was.
Okay,
We'll
you'll
look at
you'll
it
look
and-
into it and you'll report back, the Parks Board, and then just investigate what you know as of now.
Here was one question. Was Verizon the carrier that was required, or?
Doctor, I really do not remember.
Blake, let me share with you, I'm not on the council, but let me share with you my experiences with the lighting up downtown with Wi-Fi. You could run one internet line there with 200 megabits and have a circular broadcast pattern that would go a quarter of a mile, so you would not have to worry about bandwidth.
We also had incident, there is also equipment in the storage down at the parks. We had lightning,
Got hit by lightning, and we think
had lightning issues. Now, have we got equipment at both parks?
we have all the equipment in both parks. We have the camera that goes to Walsh Park in my office. It was never put back up. There's a
So
wire
the
there.
equipment
that's-
is actually in the storage or
Yes,
something, you know,
yes.
and.
So we do have all
I
the
mean, you
equipment,
have-
and we have
yeah,
an
it's-
extra camera. So we have that equipment still.
We'll work on it.
Yes.
Work on it and see how much it's gonna cost.
Yeah, Mayor, quickly, I think we have a real problem here because now it's public knowledge that we have cameras that don't work.
Well, I mean, it just came up tonight, Mayor, and,
Well, somebody needs to make up their mind what we're gonna
you
do.
know,
I agree, yeah.
somehow it did not get funded and it got cut off. That's the way I understand it.
They look like crap.
So, that's what happened. Okay, Mayor Lamline, you were talking about unfinished business, I believe. So
That
does
was it.
Anyone else have any unfinished business you'd like to bring up? If not, we'll move to new business. Anybody have any new business you'd like to bring up?
What's happening, in the alley with the cones? I mean, is there anything, I know people's parking in the yard, I guess, where the mud was. Is anything happening there, or?
You talking about at City Hall?
Yes, sir.
All I know is what happened, everybody's cutting off the road and rutting it out to get around, and I have a meeting tomorrow with Rick Lucas, who is with Good News Homes, and they own that home there, and I'm gonna talk to Mr. Lucas about that particular home site and that corner, just to see perhaps, is there anything we can do jointly, or what is the situation with the facility there? And I want to say we have a meeting tomorrow. So I'll learn more about what Good News Homes' intentions are with that piece of property and see what I can learn from that. Does that answer your question, Mayor?
Yes, and we have had a meeting with those,
We did too.
before, and talked about a parking lot there and whatever, you know, so it'd be interesting to find out. So I appreciate the fact that you're gonna meet with them, Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I just didn't like the fact that people were rutting the whole side there out, and they don't have enough room to get around when they come to the gymnasium, so that's what's happening, and we gotta deal with it. Okay, I'll go ahead and talk some things about some new business, just so I wanna make it informational to you all. It's not new business, but I want to thank the Public Works Department with Corey's leadership here tonight on dealing with these snow events and ice events. And you all have done a wonderful job, Corey. I've heard good things from all over the city about that. I want to thank the police department itself for handling any accidents during our inclement weather. So I want to say that. I will tell the council, we do have in the budget for some part-time help in our Public Works Department. Corey is very good at talking to people, interviewing people, and we have 2 part-time positions that we're going to be bringing on board. A lady named Elizabeth Newton is going to start for Corey. I don't know if did she start today? Okay. She's starting as his part-time office manager. Corey's got a nice listed detail of things she needs to be doing for him to help all the things they're into, and she's starting on a part-time basis only. Her name's Lisa Newton, and she will be paid $13 an hour. We're going to be bringing on board as Corey needs it. I think he's always done a wonderful job for our city and keeping up with our flowers and our beauty, and we're going to try to make sure we're prepared to go forward with that. And Corey would like to use Art Brush to be that person.
He's great.
Because he loves the flowers, and I think he's always done a good job keeping the town pretty with these flowers he takes care of. And he's going to come on board as a part-time person in Corey's budget at $11 an hour.
He also took care of the flags too when he was downtown working on those. He made sure those flags were flying correct, and if they were not up to par, he would let us know. So that's one thing I appreciated about him, being a veteran, and somebody was taking care of those downtown. So
I want to say to the general public, this meeting can be viewed on Spectrum Channel 184. That's the channel that this telecast can be picked up on. I was talking to Jay McDowell, and even though planning and zoning meetings run 4 and 5 hours at a time, as sort of does this one, it throws his timetable off, but he was trying to come up with a timetable that this meeting would be aired, and I think he was saying a few days ago it'd be aired at 6 o'clock on Wednesday evenings. So, but that'd be on Spectrum 184, and/or you can get this meeting on YouTube. If you want to go to YouTube, you can see this meeting on YouTube and pull it up there. That's for the general public's knowledge. A lot of this stuff is sort of announcements. We have a new donut place in town. Anybody had any donuts yet? So
No, but I will in the morning.
We got Andrea's Bakery, and we have a donut facility. So everyone, please stop and get some donuts.
I get a job too.
Go
They
on
need
the
a lot of help.
record and say that the bakery totally supports the donut shop, and the donut shop totally supports the bakery. We are big fans.
Good. I also want to bring attention to Stephanie Winther. Today is her 1-year anniversary of being with our city. And Stephanie has done many good things for our city already. She continues to. Her and Marianne Smith is back there, and they have a stack of work on their desk. And Stephanie Winther and Marianne, they are really doing a great job in tracking all this, many things that they track day in and day out. I think Marianne had a stack of bills or things she was trying to file 2 foot deep on her desk today. So thank you, Marianne. And Stephanie.
Happy anniversary to you too, for working together for a year.
Yeah.
I think the chocolate crawl's been mentioned for this Saturday. You all make sure, as far as public TV and newspapers, the Oldham era, we want our town to do good with the chocolate crawl, and come and get your chocolate. I don't know how that actually works, but I guess everybody has chocolate.
Go to each store, get
come in your
chocolates
shop,
at each store.
right?
So basically how it works is you buy a ticket, walk up and down Main Street and down to Q&A Sweet Treats.
Right.
And you pick up a little treat and you go shop, do whatever. It's a really fun time. We've done it every year, so
Okay.
it's a good time.
You can take part in that. You take part in that, right, Andrea?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. I want to mention Debbie Pollard. We get a manual or a thing from the Kentucky League of Cities. She was mentioned in our publication this last time, Debbie. I don't know if you saw it, about getting all your training hours and being at these conferences. And I tell you what, for those who did not attend the conference in Lexington, it was very lengthy and very informational. And for those who did not get there, maybe you'll get a chance to get there someday and take part in that.
10 to 5 of them.
You
They're
learn
good, though.
something new.
No, I
because
know.
Everything's always changing.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's basically a lot of announcements. Anyone have any announcements or anything you'd like to bring to the citizens or the people in our closing remarks? Anyone have anything? I know it's getting late and you're all tired, but
I'm just waking up.
not, our next meeting date, Stephanie?
March 4th.
March the 4th will be our next meeting date. And in between those times, going back to these committee structures and committee makeups, I will try to talk to some of the chairs of these committees and see perhaps if we might get a few of these into a committee meeting and see perhaps what we need to be doing in some areas.
So did you say, Mayor, you're gonna have set nights for those, or?
Yeah, I was shooting for like the second Monday, second Tuesday, and second Wednesday, dividing them up, and then sort of staggering the times on those nights. And having looked at the committee structure, some people could be there for a couple different committees that night, and vice versa. But I was trying to see perhaps if we could get them on the second week of the month, and then we would be off week from this meeting, and we try to get into some committee meetings 3 weeks prior to our next city council.
Second Monday is LaGrange Utilities Commission, so
Is it?
you won't want to, yeah, I usually,
Okay.
I very seldom missed any of those, so.
Well, there could be some conflicts with some of them, but otherwise, that's when they will be. Anyone here like to say anything in closing? I always give everybody a chance to speak. Speak on what you heard, I'm okay with it. This is about public communication, transparency, and we're trying to be as transparent as we can. So anyone like to? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You can come right up here. And because I want you on the video.
Okay, I'm Elizabeth Kirkwood, 1515 Dawkins Road, LaGrange, Kentucky, and I want to say I am extremely impressed with all of you. And not that my opinion matters, but I feel like we're in good hands. I feel like all of the people that are up there, all of you up there, are you're asking the right questions, you're paying attention, and that means that we can relax. Okay? I hate to give you all the job, but you're doing a really good job. I'm going to have to tell you, Mayor John, you have a very ambitious schedule for these people for the next year. But it sounds like a lot of fun. And I'm just really glad and I'm really proud of all of you. And I am really glad to live here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and come back anytime. Yes, ma'am. You're not going anywhere? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Tracy Ming, 604 Lakeview Drive, and I've really been impressed for the last two meetings with you, John. You've really done a good job, and you've conducted it well. It's been, these last two meetings have been some of the best I've ever seen, and I'm usually here about every meeting.
Well, thank you so much, Tracy, but
And I appreciate all of you all. It's like she said, it seems like all of you are trying to work together, you know, to do it.
yes, ma'am. Thank you, Tracy.
You're welcome.
Have I missed anyone? If not, thank everyone for coming and staying with us tonight. I appreciate those who serve on different boards. Mike Berry sitting out here, he serves on, which board? Code Enforcement? Code Enforcement, Mike's here. Superintendent Hazelton. Stephanie Winter's husband was here, wasn't he? Stephanie, am I allowed to say anything about him or not?
It was date night for him, and he left.
I don't want to say anything about him because he's got a very important role with the federal government, and I just don't want to give anything out about him at all. But he's here with Stephanie tonight. But thank everyone for coming. So this Jane Ashley's back there. She came in. She's checking on Amanda, making sure Amanda's here. So Amanda's been here since 6:15. So she's doing great. And Jane Ashley's here with the older mayor. Thank you all for coming. And thank the council for everything tonight. And if no one has anything else to say, I'll ask that for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Motion made by Joe and seconded by Leslie. Hi. How are you? Good. Yeah, well, okay, yeah, what do you need? Okay, you want to do that?